So every week before I record this intro, I take a couple minutes and I go over what I want to talk about. In these first couple minutes, I usually go over like what's current, what's going on, in every day, what I'm watching or listening to lately, and, kind of just things that I'm into. But it's a sad week. Big artist from Pittsburgh, Mac Miller, passed away. And, it's something that I thought should be addressed. I was a pretty big fan of his work for the past, probably almost 10 years since Kids came out. I remember listening to Kiss FM, and they had him on to do the release. And, I always say in these podcasts, like, the songs that you listen to, like, take you back to, like, a time, and that whole time period of, like, Kids and Mac Miller popping off in the beginning, kind of was, like, my youth, it felt like, 20, 21, around there, and you just don't have a care about anything, and you're just kind of running around with your friends, just enjoying life. And it's sad to me that he's gone. His last album he just put out, Swimming, is phenomenal. And it was something that, like, I've been listening to it a lot, like, the past, it came out the end of the month, and it was just very, very different. Like, it's just a different type of project, and I appreciate what he put out into the world. And so I have been listening to some new music. Hardo, another artist from Pittsburgh, just came out with a new, I don't know if I even know the real difference between a mixtape and, like, an album, but he has it. It's called The Fame or Fed Story, and it's on all platforms. But yeah, he's just another artist from Pittsburgh that's fucking killing it. Music scene is crazy here, as far as talent goes. But yeah, so it's a shame that artists like him was lost. And on a positive note for the Pittsburgh music scene, like, Hardo came out with, like, some really, really, really great music, and him and Mac were friends, so, like, seeing all, like, the resurgence of, like, all the old video footage and, like, pictures and everything that people were posting for the memorials is it's cool. It's cool to see all that stuff. It also, like, kind of, some of the things when people, like, die, like these celebrities and stuff, it's weird to see people's reactions, because, like, it just seems like a lot of people, like, really aren't genuine. I mean, like, obviously there's real people out there that, like, are truly hurt by that, but, like, there's also them fucking losers that are just, like, real random. They're just, like, posting something to get some likes and shit, and that's the stuff that's just gross. And that's what kind of gets exposed whenever people that were such, like, an important part of, like, the culture and everything in Pittsburgh pass away and everything. But anyway, on to the main reason people were here listening. I'm sorry, I just thought that shit had to be addressed. But this week I talked to an awesome guest, someone that I've known for a while. Her name's Maria Guido. She is a social worker. I met her years ago at the store Blasphome I, which is, like, a streetwear store that was down in the South Side, and we just met through there and kind of kept in touch on social media. But I knew her right whenever she graduated from Pitt, so she wasn't, like, working yet, but now she's, like, fully in it, doing, like, all kinds of incredible shit, working with all kinds of different people. And she comes in and sits down, and we kind of talk about it. Like, I know nothing about social work or, people with intellectual disabilities or learning disabilities or emotional disabilities, but she kind of, like, shed some light on, like, what she is dealing with her, like, everyday job. And it's definitely intense. Like, you don't, I mean, like a lot of people have a job that like doesn't really require too much like thought, like kind of like brainless activity, and it's like people like this are like dealing like she deals with kids and like helps these kids like kind of build themselves back up, and it's just, I feel like it's a lot of pressure, and it takes a special type of person to be able to do this. But I was really excited to talk to her. I was happy to see her again. It's been a minute, but yeah, without further ado, episode 36 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Maria Guido.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. You know, my next meeting of him was not until like years later, like a year later at his year anniversary dinner type thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I went with...
Oh, yeah, you guys were there. I saw you there, yeah.
I went there with my buddy Tom, and we ate, and then, you know, like, since I knew him and I knew of that store and, like, that he fucks with, like, the whole graffiti kids and, like, you know, I like the whole layout of everything, I was like, I definitely want to talk to him because he's, you know, he got to be interesting. And then we talked, and after our conversation, like, we kind of just really liked each other after that. And we just, like, he's just an easy person to like, and especially Lauren, too. Like,
yeah, they're awesome.
The whole environment down there is just dope.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And you said you met him through Blasphome?
What's that?
You said you met him through Blasphome?
Yeah, I met him through Blasphome.
Yeah. See, like, I don't remember him being down there at all.
I remember he used to grill with Bobby, and I remember them making burgers one day, and they were calling them Bobby's Burgers and stuff like that.
Before Bob's Burgers
he lived
was
in
even a
Philly
thing.
for a minute.
That's what he said. And, like, you know, after me and him talked, he was like, fuck, dude, I didn't even talk about how I was, like, the head chef of, like, a football team. And I was like, what? And, you know, like, he's just full of all kinds of wild shit. But, you know, it's a long-running bit that it's not even really, like, a bit. It's just, like, I always just name drop them because, like, you know, like, they're just incredible
they're
people.
awesome.
Streets on Carson. Every podcast, everyone hears about it, but we just keep it going. I would say I probably have known you. When did I probably meet you? 2010?
Yeah, like 2010, 2011. I think it was like right after. I wasn't in school then. Like, so I think it was right after I graduated, got my bachelor's at Pitt, because I took a year off.
Yeah, and it was just that whole period of time because Time Bomb was still on Highland Avenue.
Yeah, Time Bomb was still on Highland Avenue.
Yeah,
and
that was just a weird time.
And there was something to do every single night.
Yeah.
Like, you always were constantly, you know, going out. And I think that, you know, with Mac Miller passing away, like, it does hit, I guess, you know, like all of the kids that went to Shadow Lounge, like all of us, you know, even though we weren't like kids, but because we remember that. I mean, regardless of if you were into his music or not,
like
he kid had hustle.
Yeah, and like that's definitely where I first like started hearing of him is in Shadow Lounge. I think it was at a Varsity Squad show with BD and John Quest.
Yep.
Because I think that he either like opened it or something, but he was down there, and I didn't even know of him, but people were like, that kid's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
He's gonna be huge. And then like obviously like B White and all them were performing, but yeah, it's a fucking shame.
And it's crazy kind of just to know, like, even Jimmy Wapo, like, to know them as kids.
Yeah, it's
and
fucked
now
up.
it's like, you know, and it kind of really puts your, I think, own life into perspective.
Yeah, for sure. It's like people that are your age that are just like
right, or
dying around you.
You know, my case younger than me.
Yeah, I mean
Mick
younger.
was
Yeah,
what?
for sure. Mac was 26.
26. Yeah.
Yeah, and how old are you?
35.
Okay, yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's just a wild time because like, I think about whenever I think of like Mac Miller and shit, I think of like, you know, that whole 2009 like kids, like just that, because anytime you listen to a song, it just like takes you back to like a time of everything. So whenever I think of that, that was like my most carefree, you know, period of life was like 2009 and shit, because like, you know, I was in like CCAC dicking around, like not even, I had nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
it's just
you were being
just a kid, a young ass kid, and like, you know, no idea what I was gonna do with life, but you know, it's fucking crazy. Obviously, people like probably have heard Mac Miller passed away a couple days ago, and like he was just a big deal in Pittsburgh. You know, like and I think it's gross. I think it's gross when there's like a oversaturation of people that just like overly, you know, like glorify him, like always have to say some shit or like post some shit about him. You know what I mean? Like, anytime that any like bigger person dies, like any celebrity or anything like that, it really like shows you like who is just like thirsty as fuck on Facebook.
Oh yeah. I mean,
you know
because
what I mean?
you like, there's certain artists that, you know, they die, but it's not like they're amazing artists. Like for instance, like Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to Aretha Franklin, but Aretha Franklin dying, right? I didn't bawl. Whereas like Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, because I have that connection. I have, you know, it reminds me of certain things of my childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I will definitely cry, but that doesn't mean that I don't love
You're a big
music.
Beach Boys person?
What's that?
You're into the Beach Boys?
Yeah, and people don't get that, think that I would be into it because I'm known as like being into hip hop and you know, things like that. But I actually listen to a lot of different music. But I like the Beach Boys because Brian Wilson was just nuts. I mean, it was fucking crazy. Like, but if you listen to like Pet Sounds, which is my favorite album by them, and that's like not. You know, like everybody hears the Beach Boys and they think like surf and cars and things like that.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, Pet Sounds wasn't that.
I don't even know what that is.
Pet Sounds is like one of the greatest albums ever. Rolling Stone rated it number 2 on their 5. I mean, Rolling Stone isn't really what Rolling Stone was back then, but they rated it number 2. And fun fact for everybody, Pet Sounds was written because so the Beatles wrote Revolver and Brian Wilson listened to Revolver high as a kite and got inspired by it, so he made Pet Sounds. The Beatles then listened to Pet Sounds and they were influenced to make Sgt. Pepper's.
So it was just a big circle.
Right, and then...
Is Brian Williams the lead singer?
Brian Wilson. He wasn't the lead singer. He was the lead singer like the first couple years, but then like he went like not like when he started first going nuts, he like stopped touring. He was like, I'm not touring at all.
What do you mean he nuts? Like just losing his mind kind of?
Like starting to lose his mind.
Oh, shit.
So, but then he was like the producer.
Yeah.
You know, and he was able to just kind of like, and I always tell everybody, I'm like, no, you need to listen to Pet Sounds. Listen to it, read about it, because he was in so much pain, but it's such beautiful music. Yeah,
I mean, like, whenever I think of the Beach Boys, like, I only know, like, the singles of them and everything. So, like, everything you hear from them is, like, the happy shit, kind of, I feel.
Yeah, and you can't, and I think, too, like, you know, I had a conversation with Hubs about this.
Yeah.
About... There's not like when I was younger, like when you listen to a record, you listen to an entire album, right?
Yeah.
And it was a concept and it told a story.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, and now I'm sounding like one of those old fucking people, like nowadays and back in my day, but no, nowadays it's about singles and it's about
100%.
You know what I mean? That's like missing.
I'm guilty of that for sure because, like, you know, like I
think we all are too.
I don't ever remember. The only albums I ever remember listening to, like, from beginning to end were, like, Led Zeppelin early days and latter days because, like, you know, like, I was always, like, a single person. Like, I never explored a whole album and, like, you know, I missed out on so much music that I listen to, like, now and I'm like, fuck, like, this is so good and I've never listened to it. But, like, you know, like Led Zeppelin, I've been a fan of them forever. Even like Biggie and shit like that. You know, some shit I've skipped over on CDs and everything.
Yeah.
And it's just now I gripped all my dad's like vinyl shit that I wanted to, and I started like getting into that a little bit more.
That's
and
sick.
you know, it's just a pain in the ass. You can't like just keep skipping tracks, so you kind of are forced to
You're forced to listen to it.
Yeah, you're forced to listen to it. So it's and it's cool now that like all these like newer people are putting out like vinyl and shit, even though it's a waste of fucking money.
Yeah.
As far as like, I mean, it's the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a waste, but it's definitely like a hipster trap.
Definitely, yeah.
100%.
But it is, you know, it is interesting, like regardless of how music is going, and I think this was because again I work with kids, you know, I work with adolescents, so that's how I really learn about new music sometimes.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude,
there's so much shit that I don't know about.
Yeah, I'm like, this is shit, bro. Like, what are we fucking doing? Like, so I'll let them like pick something, and then I'll make them listen to something.
Yeah.
So I've taught like my kids about like
the good shit.
Oh yeah, Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, so like, okay. Now, before we even get into this more, first of all, we have the first segment. I do a segment every podcast, just to kind of open it up. It's called What's in the Cup.
What's in the cup?
What's in my cup?
Yeah.
Ginger ale.
Ginger ale.
Yep.
So,
either Canada Dry or Schweppes. I am not.
Do you have a preferred? Like, what's your favorite of all ginger ales? I definitely have a first and second.
I'd say Schweppes. I love Schweppes.
I'm not even just talking about brands. I'm talking about like whether it be a flavor type. Like for instance, my shit is, I'd say my number one is either the cranberry raspberry ginger ale that comes around during the holidays, or the Tom Tucker mint ginger ale.
Can't get into either.
You don't fuck with either of them?
I tell people, I'm like, my palate is like a 5-year-old's. So there's some things that I'll eat that people will be like, we'll eat that. Like I love like raw tuna.
Yeah.
Love it. Like won't eat canned tuna, but I'll eat raw tuna. Like I'll go and get like, you know, poke bowl or whatever.
Yeah.
Pokey, however the fuck you say it.
Yeah, how everyone says it.
Poke.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm so yinzer about it too. You know, yins want to go down and get a poke bowl?
Yeah,
like,
a poke bowl. It's like people see it down in the city and they're like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
But so the reason I wanted to have you on here is because, you know, we've known each other for a minute. I knew you whenever you were coming out of school, and I knew that you were getting into like social work and, you know, working with kids and everything like that. But I also know you as like, you know, hardcore hip hop, you know, like don't give a fuck, kind of just like say your piece and like don't care what people think.
Yeah.
And, you know, I found that I find it like refreshing that like I consider you like a real person.
Thanks.
And like whenever I say like real people, I think a real person to my definition is like someone, you know, like I consider myself a real person because like I'm gonna say what I feel, and if people dislike it, then
You're
that's
like,
it.
fuck it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So like I'm not gonna like coddle anyone's feelings or like what they enjoy, because like, you know, like I mean it's obviously why I'm doing this fucking podcast. I just like talking to people.
Yeah.
Because everyone has like their own, you know, like their own fucking way of doing everything, and that's like kind of the basis of this. But you said you now is that your profession type? Is it social work?
Well, yeah. So so I have a master's in social work, and
Okay.
I'm known as I have like I wear a couple hats. So
Yeah.
like I'm a family therapist.
Okay.
And an individual therapist, but then I also am an expert witness in the courts. So it's kind of just I just put it all into this one thing.
Under one umbrella.
Right, social work, because social work is actually really broad. I mean,
Yeah.
people always hear, "Oh, you're a social worker," and they're like, "Do you take kids?"
Well, that's what I think of. Like, so I think of someone who doesn't have any experience in it. Like, whenever I thought of social work, I think of someone that manages basically kids that need adopted. That was my first experience of like really like, because my two cousins were adopted whenever they were real young, and I just remember social worker being this lady that kind of like came with them and was like their overseer whenever.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, it was very weird to me because I was probably maybe 8 or 9 whenever they got adopted, and they were like 2 and 3. But no, that couldn't have been right because they're only 2 years younger than me. So I was probably maybe like 5 or 6. And I just remember being like, what is that lady? Social worker. And I just remember thinking like, you know, she was like the overseer. So that's what I feel like a lot of people might think it is.
Yeah, I mean, and people, and it makes sense because I think that, you know, if you even look at how we're portrayed in film or television, you know, it's always we're the ones that are coming in and we're telling you what to do, or if you don't do this, we're taking your kid.
Yeah.
Social work is so much broader than that. And it's crazy because you can really do a lot. I mean, you don't have to do direct practice if you don't want to. You don't have to, you know, you can really do a lot with it.
All right, let's put a pin in this real quick. Just because I want to know, okay. Now let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Plum, actually. And I don't talk about that a lot because I have trauma from Plum.
Trauma from Plum?
Yeah.
What kind of trauma from Plum?
So I got kicked out of Plum in 8th grade. And that is kind of like, and this is kind of like, you know, my story. Like, so Plum, basically, like, I was getting bullied by other girls, right? Didn't know how to deal with it. So obviously, like, as a kid, you know, I was 13. I was acting out.
Yeah.
And they told my parents, like, they called my parents and, you know, made them come into meetings, and they said, you know, you need to take your daughter to be evaluated, you know, at a psych hospital.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I was 14.
What were you doing to act
I
out?
was 13. Talking back.
Okay.
Wasn't going to school.
I thought you meant you were, like, trying to hit people with chairs and shit.
Oh, no, that. I didn't go that far, but that comes later on.
Okay.
But like, I wasn't going to school. Like, I was skipping. You know, I was smoking weed. I was messing around with dudes. Like, just being a teenage girl that was, like, crying out for help. So my parents ended up, you know, listening to this school and being like, oh, shit. Like, because back then, this was the 90s. So you didn't have these school placements that you have now. You have all types, and now we look at kids very differently.
Yeah.
You know, not all children are the same. They don't learn the same. They didn't see that back then. And Plum was just very dismissive. You take her or she can't come back to school.
Oh, yeah.
So my parents thinking, okay, took me to, it was the hospital was St. Francis at the time, which is actually the children's hospital now.
Yeah.
That's where St. Francis was. And I ended up having to go to, like, this partial program where I, like, went to school there every day, but, like, you had therapy on top of that. But from there, it was like...
And you were 13, you said?
I was 13, about to turn 14.
Okay.
But from there, it just kind of spun out of control because I had this label, right?
Yeah.
You're a kid, you know, like, you're crazy, you have problems. And that just kind of, like, spun out of control.
Yeah.
So, you know, I kind of had, like, not a weird upbringing, but we were in the city a lot as kids because both of my grandparents lived in a city. Mm-hmm. We were being Italian, we were very close. Yeah. So I knew people from the city. And I remember lying to my parents and being like, oh, yeah, drop me off at, I think it was Waterworks Mall. And I'd jump on the bus, the 91A, and I'd go meet my friends in the city. And I just started getting into some shit. And from there, it was like 14, I went to rehab. I was, like, in a psych house. I was a Western psych. Yeah. Like, all of this shit started happening. And I was basically just, like, labeled, like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, defective. Like, then that's no hope for you.
There's no hope for you. You're never going to amount to anything. You'll be dead.
You said something that definitely, like, kind of, you know, struck something with me. Like how you said back then, we looked at kids very differently. You know, nowadays there's, like, almost too many categories and too many things, diagnoses. But, like, back then it was always, like, the more, like, you know, don't be a pussy, you know, or, like, you're not fucking, like, it was just not looked. I get what you're saying. It's harder to explain for me.
Yeah, like, and they didn't have, like, their answer to everything back then was put the kid in placement.
Yeah,
or put the kid in the hospital. And actually, they found. I mean, it was strange because, like, growing up, I mean, that was my big secret. I never talked about that with anyone when I was, like, in my 20s or anything. Because
that you went through all that?
I went through all that because it was such a big secret to me. You know, and you know, I had to kind of work through it the way that I had to, and it, you know, it ended up working out. But like, the more, like, back then, like, the more people that I talked to, the more people that did happen to.
Yeah.
That they were like, oh yeah, I was a Western psych, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, so like there might have been like a lot of people that had that same sort of background that didn't want to talk about it. Like,
right. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that, you know, it directly correlates to what I do now.
yeah. So like, and now, what was like high school like for you? Like, were you still having like was shit still going on in high school? Like,
Oh yeah, I was cutting up. I was like going to raves and stuff. Like I was
okay.
getting real bad. I was dropping acid, smoking weed, like cutting up. I was going to alternative schools, but I would keep getting like kicked out of them. You know, because it was just, I was pissed. I was dealing with, like, now looking back and being educated in this and everything, I can see that I was dealing with my own trauma.
Yeah.
You know, now
Just like
I
your
never-
own way.
Right, in my own way. And there wasn't the services that you have now that could treat it. It was
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was just gonna say. Like, if you're fucking young, you don't have any education, and like you might not have the the support system through like school and shit to be able to like
right.
kind of self heal yourself, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't even know. It's just way above.
And back then, it was every kid. I came out when I started having my issues. That was when bipolar was really popular.
Yeah.
So everyone was getting bipolar diagnosed. And you're giving a kid that diagnosis, you're giving them heavy drugs.
Yeah.
You know, so there were times where I was on Depakote, you know, that I had to get.
I don't know what any of that is. What is that? An
They're like
antidepressant
mood- they're
or
mood
antipsychotic? Oh,
It's mood stabilizer, but it fucks with your kidneys. So
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to get like your blood tested every month. Like there's some of these drugs, dude, are really
Jeez.
fucking nuts.
and like being young, like 14, 15, shit
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and
Jeez.
your body becomes used to them, regardless of what they say. Like they're non-addictive, all of that. Once you, and look, I'm not dissing every medication, because there are medications, there are people, and there are kids and
Yeah.
things like that that need them.
Definitely circumstances.
Right. But you know, you, of course, if you're putting a 14-year-old on all of this medication, of course they're gonna act out and they're gonna
Yeah.
push back more. And yeah, I mean, so high school, I actually ended up dropping out of high school my senior year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, dropped out. I was going to CCAC already.
Yeah.
Like I was taking classes there. That was the thing. I was always extremely intelligent. I never believed it though. Like,
Yeah.
But there was one teacher, this teacher, her name was Miss Hendricks. She like used to homeschool me when I was on like homebound at one point. And she said, like, she did a test, and I ended up, like, I think it was, like, when I was, like, 14, I ended up like, my reading score was, like, college freshman level.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, like...
It's not that you didn't lack the intelligence to do things. It was just like...
Oh, right. And I picked and choose. I mean, we
Yeah,
would
for
go
sure.
yeah, like, I went, like, one of the alternative schools I went to, like, I remember, like, we did have, like, regular classes, and I would do English. That was what I would do. I would talk about the book, and that was it.
You like that stuff?
Loved it. If
Yeah.
you would tell me to do math, science, I'd be like, fuck you, fuck off. I ain't fucking doing it.
See, I was like, I liked certain parts of different things. Like history was like kind of dumb to me. You know, like I never paid attention in school whatsoever with like history, but like, physics was super dope to me. You know what Rube Goldberg is? Rube
No.
Goldberg Project?
No.
So it's like it's a contraption that you start by cutting a string, and there's so many steps, and at the end, you know who OK Go is? The band OK Go?
Yeah.
They have them crazy music videos where like a
Oh,
ball
yeah,
rolls
yeah,
down.
yeah. There it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's just a big Rube Goldberg project, but like you cut a string and something will fall down and roll down and hit a mouse trap, and that'll do something else and that'll do something else. It's a chain reaction, but shit like that fucking was so sick to me, making bridges out of like pasta with glue, but like
liked all that.
I didn't give a fuck about anything else of it though. And like chemistry, like that shit wasn't cool to me.
Yeah.
But like math was for somewhat easy for me. I don't know. It was just
'Cause of
school
the
was
fit-
super
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I mean, and I think too that people have different, like, I didn't really start enjoying learning until I went to college.
Yeah, me either. You know, like I just was there to hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
You know, like that was all it was. And especially if you played football, like you didn't really like.
You didn't.
My
do
math
shit.
teacher would literally like we would walk in and we would have a test and you know, I would just sleep and I would just have to turn in a test and he would be like, grab her test and you know, write down the answers. You know,
like
it was kind
that's-
of just an understanding.
Yeah, and that's like kind of crazy to like look back at it.
Fuck
you know?
yeah!
I'm
Now
sure,
that I
like,
think about it, I'm like, what the fuck was
Like, it
going
was
on
fucked
back
up,
then?
man.
And now you have all these teachers fucking students and everything like that.
they were doing that back when
They definitely
when I was
were.
there, yeah.
But now it's just like we all have a camera in our fucking hand
Mm-hmm.
and everyone has social media. But regardless, we're getting off topic. But you like in high school, you said you dropped out. So what, like, if you drop out of high school, what's your next step into like going to school and shit?
Well, I was at CCAC and I was taking classes, and there was this thing basically where like if you went to CCAC and finished your associate's degree, you would just get your high school diploma automatically. Well, that didn't end up happening because again, I was still cutting up. I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
I had a fake ID at this point. Like I was fucking just. I mean, dude,
Yeah, just running around doing all
running
kinds of
around just
crazy
being
shit.
An asshole, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so, I didn't end up getting I got my GED when I was 19. I got it at Conroy School in the Hill District, and that's not there anymore. I don't think the Conroy building, or Conley it was. And I got my GED there, but I didn't take, like, I tried going back to CCAC, and then I dropped out, but my dad was like, if you're not going to go to school, you need to get a fucking job.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up getting a job in geriatrics. I worked at a nursing home.
Really?
Yeah. So
How
I
was
became
that?
I was a certified nursing assistant. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, like and I was young, and you know, they expected a lot out of you. I mean, I did it for about like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I liked working with older people and all of that. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to school for nursing. But then I wanted to like move on from the elderly. I wanted to work with like the mentally disabled, like intellectual disabilities. So I did that. And I did that for like 3 years. When I was doing that, we had a client who had both like what they call ID. They used to call it MR, mental retardation, but now it's intellectual disability, who had both intellectual disability and mental illness.
Okay.
From there, it was like, and she was like, wow.
Like, what is a mental instability and wait, what were the two things you just said?
Intellectual disability and mental illness.
What's the difference of them?
So an intellectual disability is like really like where your IQ level is.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
And then, you know, the mental health portion comes in.
Yeah, like could be like schizophrenia, bipolar. Is that what you're talking about? Stuff like that? Okay, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, so, and then I just had an interest in that, and then I think I did that for like 3 years. And I worked in like a house. So like, you know, it was like, it was cool because it was like, they lived in their own house, you know, and you made them as independent as they could be. And I liked that because it was like, you're not helping.
Stripping people of their dignity.
Right. You're not stripping people of their dignity. You're helping them. They're adults. Just because they have Down syndrome or whatever doesn't make them any different.
Yeah, for sure.
But from there, that's when I started getting really interested in like just the mental health aspect of stuff.
Now, were you able to work in all this shit without schooling? Like, you didn't have schooling to work in this field at all?
Right. I didn't need, because I was just like a direct care worker.
Oh, okay,
so it was but at that time, I started going to CCAC and I was like taking classes.
Yeah.
And then at CCAC, like I had set it up to where what was it? Oh, I wanted to transfer to Pitt. And they had this program where it was like non-traditional students, where you could get into the School of General Studies at the University of Pittsburgh. So CCAC, like they told me what classes I needed to take, what average I needed to keep, all of that. So I did that and I applied to Pitt. But that was in 2008 I applied. And then I got in for like the spring semester of 2009 and I started at Pitt.
Yeah.
When I was at Pitt, I ended up changing jobs, and I worked straight mental health. And I worked with adults. And it was really strange because back then, like, I didn't want to do social work. I actually wanted to go into urban redevelopment.
What's that?
So urban redevelopment is like when you go in to like community. It's basically gentrification.
Oh, okay.
But
I
I
get
wanted
what
to
you're
do like the opposite, like help the community fight back against
Yeah, and
it.
be able to build it up in their own way.
Right, in their own
Okay,
way.
I get what you're saying.
But I was working in mental health, and I was doing like some wild stuff. Like I would work, and I worked like, you know, sometimes they just lived in houses or whatever. Sometimes it was like 16 people in a locked unit. So I did all levels. And I was always just very, like, nothing ever scared me. Nothing ever freaked me out. You know, I worked with like people, you know, with schizophrenia. I learned, like, this one dude that I had, he taught me everything there is to know about the British monarchy. He knew
Really?
every fucking thing that you could think of about the British monarchy. This dude could tell you it. That was his deal. Like, he just loved the fucking British monarchy.
Really?
Man.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, even though like a lot of times like people with schizophrenia, you know, are like talking like completely like delusional, you know, there are those times of like lucidity, like where they're calm, like they're stable, like they're people too. Like they all have stories. And it was like strange because at the time, I always said I didn't want to work with kids. But I went to my advisor and I was talking to her and I was like, I need an internship. And she was like, what would you think about doing something with kids in the system? I was like, I don't want to work with kids.
Why is that though?
I don't know. I think that at the time it was too close to what I had went through.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, now granted, like, again, and I always say this, I haven't been through a third of what my clients have been through at all. Like, I have two amazing parents, you know, like they were amazing. Like, I could have went to placement and my parents were like, no, we'll handle her in the house.
Yeah, for sure.
Know? So it was like it's a lot different, but
you also been through some shit, so like,
right,
you know,
right. And so she told me, she was like, just see. She's like, why don't you see if probation or something like that. So I ended up doing an internship at a foster care agency.
Okay,
and I loved it.
Really
loved it. I was like just super interested in it. I loved working with the kids, but it was still, at the time, I had these populations of kids that I didn't want to work with. And I'll never forget, I told us like supervisor once, I was like we were just talking, and she asked me about my interest and what I wouldn't be comfortable with, and I said, I was like, I don't want to work with teenage girls, and I don't want to work with kids who sexually offend.
Yeah.
She said, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If you're in child welfare, this is what you deal with. And she said that, and it kind of clicked in my head. All right, well, let me try something. Let me take a leap of faith. And that's when I started working with teenagers.
Yeah.
So that was...
What did you think? Well, why didn't you want to work with a teenage girl? Just because, like, like you said, it was kind of close to what you were feeling? It
was close to what I was feeling, and also... And again, that's the teenage girls are my favorite population now.
Yeah.
And I'll get to how that happened,
Yeah.
but they're known to be very difficult, especially in the field. Nobody wants to work with the girls. No, I work with the boys all day. I don't want to work with the girls. The girls are different.
Yeah.
They're different. They process things differently. They've been through... severe trauma. Not that the boys haven't.
No, but
they're different.
Yeah.
Boys will fight. They'll fight and it'll be over. Girls will plan, and it will just, they can rile up a whole house. I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Like I'll totally admit, like the first time I worked at a placement, it was with all girls. And it was different girls, like, from Pittsburgh, but then we had Philly girls, and, like, I'm not going to lie to you, yo. They scared the fuck out of me.
I bet.
Scared the shit out of me because
You ever have anyone, like, ever attack you or anything?
No, yeah, but not the only once.
Oh, okay.
Now little ones, yeah, that was like different, like because I've had to do restraints and stuff.
Yeah,
before.
yeah, I'm sure.
But I was only like attacked once, and it was a client. It was actually not too long ago. It was maybe like a year ago. A client was like in a psychotic state, and she tried to push me
Okay.
down a pair of steps, and I had to like go through. I mean, in again, like I am a therapist. You know, I know that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get hurt, thank God. But I think that there are staff that have been attacked and things like that.
Like I had a best friend in high school for a while. His mom worked at I think Western Psych, but some psychiatric ward of hospital or something. But you know, she's this small lady, probably like 5'3", you know, like regular build, but she's kind of older too. And you know, she has to wear this like necklace that's like a little button. And if someone gets crazy, like she has to press that button, and hopefully that person doesn't kill her by the time they get there. And she was telling us, like, you know, the one day there was this dude that was like, you know, as big as I am, and he like went after her and was like choking her and shit. And that's why like it was like interesting to me because like I feel like, I mean, you can't say anything without people like you know, taking it a certain way. But I feel like in your field, like females just like might not be able to defend themselves as well as a man can some of the times, like, you know what I mean, like,
well, it's
as far as like body
always,
stature, I don't fucking know.
So like this has always been my argument when it comes to you know, when God forbid, and this is, you know, apolitical, however people feel about police, but that's always been my argument about the police of like, you know, I've put down, and I'm not that big. I'm 5'4", maybe 140 pounds, or maybe like 150 now. But I wasn't that big back then either. But we were taught ways to take kids down, and does it always work? No. You know, there were times where like I couldn't. There was a 9-year-old that just squirmed right out of my hands. I mean, and I'd always tried, like, and I think I did a very good job at not being a person that always ran to restraints. Because I think that they're traumatic. I mean, the kids screaming, you're getting beat up, you know, like, and I actually had quit a job after I graduated with my master's because all they did was restrain kids and little ones. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, like that's not going to solve anything. It's just, and kids are just going to be scared about that.
Right. And it doesn't work. And, you know, it's just because it is like, I mean, there are people that get into the field and they love to do that. Like they get into the field,
like a power trip,
kids up.
Yeah, just like a cop.
Right.
Some cops, not
all cops, right? But
obviously.
It's a power.
There's 100% people that have just became cops just because they got bullied in high school.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
And that's fucked up.
Right. And that is this, you know. And that's the thing, when you're doing that to a traumatized kid, a kid that has always seen that, how do you think that they're going to react? You know, now look, like, it's strange because it's like I noticed that like when I started social work, I had all these biases and all these things that all these biases and things that I thought about. And now it's like, okay, how the hell did this happen? You know, because teenage girls became my favorite population to work with. And actually, I have a specialty in juveniles who sexually offend as well. And I didn't want to work with them either. Yeah. But it's a different way of seeing things.
Yeah, and I'm sure that like with all your like education and everything, like you, like for instance, I don't know, whenever I'm on this podcast and people talk to me about shit, I try to think of ways to, you know, kind of compare them to something that I'm thinking of, like, and you know, I think that we just don't understand, like people just don't understand who don't have the education, like how, whether it be about like, you know, music or like any sort of like hobby, like a musician is going to hear a song a different way than I would because I have no musical ability, like, but you see things a little bit different. Like people that don't have no education and might think like that kid's just fucking crazy. Like for instance, like what I definitely wanted to like talk to you about is just like I know, and we can cut this out if you want to too, but like that kid Jordan, who stabbed them kids.
Oh, Jacob. No, not Jacob. Sorry. Alex Ribel. No, we can talk about this. I didn't work on this case.
What is that? His name, Alex? The kid from
Alex Franklin Regional.
Yeah.
Alex Ribel.
No,
I can talk. I didn't work on the case. So
Okay, so like, but I seen like, so from an outsider's point of view, for anyone that doesn't remember, what was the details? How old was this kid?
He was 15, and he had a plan, and he did a massive stabbing. Almost. It was about 19 to 20 kids.
Yeah. And he was just running around stabbing people, and he had this planned out, premeditated planned out.
It was premeditated plan.
Yeah.
Then once, and hearing that and seeing that.
Yeah, like, and that's what I was getting at. From an outsider's point of view, you think like, holy shit, that kid's fucking crazy. Like, lock him up or whatever. But, like, I'm friends with you on social media, and you're pretty active on social media as far as like voicing your opinions. And that's why, like, I find you interesting because, like, you say what you feel, whether you don't give a fuck what people think. But you were explaining, like, this kid doesn't I think the article I was looking at was whether they were going to try him as an adult or a juvenile.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you were advocating that they try him as a juvenile, correct? Yes.
At the time, I was advocating that he be tried as a juvenile, due to the fact of his age at the time of the crime, the diagnosis that he received, and this is all in the paper, so this isn't private information or anything, which was schizoaffective disorder. There were a number of things, and also too, I believe because I do this for a living, right? So the defense attorney will call me in and say, hey, I got a kid that's being charged what they call in Pennsylvania an Act 33. So that's if you're 10 or over in PA, if you commit a homicide, that's automatic adult. That's why we had like an 11-year-old being tried as an adult for homicide. Like that's a PA law.
Oh shit.
But Act 33s are if you're 15 or over and you commit like robbery, aggravated assault, attempted homicide, rape, certain things like that, you can be tried as an adult.
Yeah.
So that was the law that was coming down. So there's certain things that I have to look at in those cases when I decide, can I decertify a kid? Can I recommend decertification or not?
Yeah.
One of those things is age. So with Alex, I thought because he was 15 at the time, and again, looking back at it, I do think because he was charged as an adult, and they are, I believe, treating him in the mental health.
They did charge him as an adult?
Oh yeah, he got convicted as an adult as well.
Okay.
So he stayed in the adult, but also I understand their argument now because when it first happened, I mean, I wasn't even out of school yet.
Yeah.
I was like actually my last year of grad school, and actually that case I talked about it in a class that I took, social work and the law.
Yeah.
And there was this professor, Jeff Shook, who is awesome. Shout out to Dr. Jeff Shook at University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, who I still consider a mentor. He just saw that I had this interest, and I was talking about it, and I was like,
that case.
Right, in that case.
Yeah.
And he knew also that I was interning at the public defenders in the juvenile division, and I loved it. He's the one that actually brought me under his wing and was like, you should do expert witness stuff. And I didn't even know what the fuck that was. I was really tired about it.
I still don't know what it is.
Yeah, so basically what it is if you have an expertise in we're talking about, okay, so...
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole bunch of pieces going on right now.
Okay, so
let's start with this. Expert witness is what?
So an expert witness is basically a person that has an expertise in a specific subject. So like an auto mechanic could be called...
An expert witness.
Could be called an expert witness.
Oh, shit, like in My Cousin Vinny, whenever that dude was talking about the car shit at the end.
Yeah.
And... Marissa Tomei was like, okay, I get what you're saying now. That's what I mean whenever I compare things to things, just so I can understand them. But what we were talking about was like Alex and like how like people from the outside might not like know the whole story behind it, and you just like us, right from us, me saying like the outside world is just like, yeah, fuck this kid, like he's doing whatever, like he went nuts, and there's no hope for him. But like you, from the shit that I've read through your posts, and you were the only person that like has ever like shed any light on anything like that. It's always stuck with me, like the stuff that you were saying about whether like however this person should be charged, whether it happened with him or not, but that should be something you think about. You should think about the whole thing rather than just like the first instant and the first headline, like 15-year-old killer has a plan to stab a bunch of people. But like this kid might have like fucked up mental problems, and like he could possibly, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm spinning my wheels. No,
but I think that's what I like about social work, and because we look at things in a holistic manner.
Yeah.
And I don't think that every social worker does that. I think that there are some social workers that, they do their 9-to-5 thing and they go home and they have their life, which is fine. That's perfectly fine to me.
Yeah.
That's just not me. I consider myself like what is called like a radical social worker, where like I'm living it. This is my purpose in life. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, people call you, you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
But with kids, it is very easy to see a heinous crime, right? Like Alex Rivals, and what he did was extremely heinous. I mean, people could have died.
Yeah, for sure.
There were 19, 20 victims. But then there's also these other factors of he didn't have a juvenile record.
Yeah, like and that's where like that's my original point of what I was trying to go to. It's like these things that like we might not be, too keen on. Like he didn't have a juvenile record, and like
right. You have to look at like in those cases culpability. So if you have a group of 5 kids and they rob a pizza delivery driver or whatever, who's culpable? Who is more culpable in that case? Because if it's the kid that was just standing on the sideline, should that kid be punished with as much as the kid that held the gun or whatever?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's hard to like explain, and I don't know. It's hard to fucking get to where I'm trying to go because I don't have the terminology to understand it. You know what I mean? But it's like that's why I figured it was that's why I thought it was interesting, because like whenever you would put them up and be like, like this kid he doesn't just need like locked away. He needs to be like evaluated and like kind of just like this whole thing needs to be looked at a different way rather than just being like lock him up and throw away the key. And that's another reason that like I always found like I think it's refreshing whenever people, don't immediately just like gravitate towards what they think, and they kind of just like chew up both sides of it and like create their own like their own feelings about everything. And like do you listen to Joe Rogan ever?
Yeah, I listen to some Joe Rogan.
So like the reason I like Joe Rogan is because like
he's crazy.
But like he will listen to literally both sides of an argument and then like chew everything up and spit out what he believes. And like that's fine with me. Like I'm cool if you don't disagree. I'm cool if you don't agree with me. It's just I want you to
understand my point of view.
Yeah, be willing to hear what other people are saying, and like be willing to like kind of be vulnerable with your choice. Like I was the dude in the beginning. I was always like, yeah, like fuck like how people wanted to raise the wage, minimum wage. I was like, fuck that, that's fucking dumb. Go work, do all that shit. And then like someone brought up a point that like completely made my whole foundation fall. And it was like, people that do have mental disabilities. Like let's say there's a guy that has a mental disability that works at my Giant Eagle that like I see him every fucking time I'm there, bagging groceries and shit. And someone said to me like, why should that dude only be able to make $8 make minimum wage $8 his entire life just because might not be mentally capable to handle a job that allows him to make more money? And I was like, fuck, like that right there like really like made me like rethink some shit, because like that's a valid argument. Like, why?
And I think that's okay.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that more people don't do that, and that's an issue. And I try to tell that to the kids that I work with, is that, look, you're gonna make mistakes in life. You're gonna have opinions in life that you're gonna go back on,
Yeah.
right? That you're gonna go back on, and you're gonna say, you know what? I looked at the other side of things, and this is what it is. That's the whole concept of like checking white privilege and understanding that concept.
Yeah.
I think that it's okay for people to admit that they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because that's how you grow.
For
That's
sure.
how you learn.
100%.
You know? And I think that it's very easy, especially like nowadays, because we are in this type of world. It's 140 characters, right?
Yeah.
Catching your attention.
Pushing headlines.
Right. We miss this whole story.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I found with doing the expert witness stuff, and also doing like mitigation stuff, which is basically the same thing, but I was doing it for juvenile lifers.
Yeah.
So these are people that, like, these are old dudes in the SCI, like the prisons.
Yeah.
Who committed their crimes as juveniles were given life without parole.
Oh, really?
As a juvenile.
Jesus.
No, it's unconstitutional now.
Yeah.
They made it unconstitutional in 2012, and then
What does that mean? What does that mean, unconstitutional?
It means that you can't. It's unconstitutional to you can't give a kid life without the possibility
okay.
of parole
I get what
as
you're
a
saying.
sentence, because they use science to
Yeah,
back
yeah,
this
yeah.
up. That kids are different. Your brain doesn't fully develop until 25.
Exactly. Like that's.
Yeah.
Like, if you think of even like 10 years ago, how different of a human being you are, it's crazy to think. I don't know. It's just crazy to think about that. That's why, like, I watch things like there's things online where it's like a dude. What the fuck was I just watching? It was a kid. It was a guy who it was a kid who killed someone whenever he was younger, and he grew up and is like not in jail, but he's living a life that, I don't know, he seems to be fine. But you know what I mean? I don't know.
The lifers that I worked with,
It's a crazy touchy subject, I feel.
it is, because when you tell somebody lifer, they are convicted of murder, they automatically jump back and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Now, and I can tell you a little bit about this case, because the dude that the guy that I worked for, he has told me, I want you to share my story.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name him and stuff, but I'm not going to take some details out, but he wasn't even the he wasn't even the one that killed the victim in the case.
Yeah.
He was driving the car. Mm-hmm. Because we have something called felony murder rule, where if you're at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime, you're charged with homicide.
Oh, really?
If somebody dies, yeah.
Oh, shit.
So, I mean, and this was a dude that, and I liked working with the lifers, because, you really saw, you basically, my job was to tell the judge a story, because we were trying to get them resentenced because of the, the law in 2012, the case in 2012 that made it unconstitutional was called Miller v. Alabama. And then in 2016, they decided that it was retroactive. And that was Montgomery v. Louisiana.
What were these cases? What was the Miller versus Alabama? What was that case?
They were based off of two cases, and it was two juveniles who committed murder.
Okay.
So the one dude from Alabama, the Miller kid, Evan Miller, he the story was he beat the shit out of this dude and left the dude for dead and lit the trailer on fire, right? He gets life without parole. But they fought it, and they said that what was the problem was they did not look at his background. So this was a kid who was severely abused from literally, had all these issues. Didn't say that that the guy that he killed was, his mother's drug dealer.
Yeah.
There were all of these other factors that played into this. So basically the Supreme Court stated you have to look into these factors.
Yeah, because that's fucked up if there's like all this crazy shit and there's like, no, you're going to jail for life.
right.
And without even any sort of like yeah, I don't know. That's pretty wild. Whenever you were talking to people on death row, did you
Well, they were on death row.
well, not death row, but life, did you notice any more sort of like vulnerability from them as far as like talking to you about stuff? Because like
yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing that impressed me with my lifers were just that I had to go back. Like, I mean, my one lifer, he has done 30 years. He's getting out in a couple years, but I had to go back and try to go through his juvenile records, and it was almost impossible.
oh yeah.
And you have to interview people. You have to go back generations because you need to. The goal is to tell this story,
Yeah.
But they do think that, at times they are vulnerable because they don't know the world that they're going to be stepping out in.
That's what I was getting in. Like as far as like whenever I said vulnerable, that might not be like the right word, but like, people that it just makes me think of like Shawshank whenever Morgan Freeman's character gets out and like the world is just like completely different. If people are in jail whenever if they go to jail when they're like fucking 10, 12, 14 years old and they've been in there for 30 years and then they come out here like what is I'm sure there's some people that don't want to come out.
Well, right. There was actually a case, and I can't remember what it was, what state it was in, but this guy was like, no, just let me fucking stay. I'm here. I don't have anywhere to go. I think he was like in his 70s or something. He was like, no, I'm going to die here. Like, because again, they are told.
Yeah.
And it's it's sad because a lot of the times, like, there's such trauma and there's such craziness. Like, my one dude, he was in a gang, and that was his life. And the thing was that it wasn't like you got jumped into this gang.
Yeah.
This gang formed because they had no choice.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like he had to be in it. And he was getting out of the game when his whole situation happened.
Yeah.
But you see that, I think the most powerful thing for me, and I had to leave both times for both of the juvenile lifer cases that I worked on, the biggest part of them being resentenced is they have to show remorse. And both of my guys were actually not the main culprits of the crime.
Yeah.
In the remorse that they showed was just, I mean, like in the way that they talked to the judge it was so real and so raw.
Yeah.
And as a social worker, even though I'm supposed to be like this tough as nails chick.
Yeah.
I had to leave both times because I was just crying.
Oh, I
and
bet.
Crying and crying. I mean,
do you have people that lie to you, and like, do you have clients that like are guilty and just like lie to you about shit? And
fuck yeah, the kids do all the time, and I tell the kids straight up, I'm like, look, I am very blunt with the kids. Like, I'm like, listen, I don't work for CYF. I don't work for a prosecution. I don't work for any of them. I work for your defense, okay?
Yeah.
You need to tell me the truth. I don't care if you did it or not.
Yeah.
Like, and there's kids that have said to me, like, I didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? You tell Mr. the attorney that you're not interested. And wait, miss. And then, so they'll definitely like lie. I mean, and I have kids, that I work with as a therapist that they lie all the fucking time.
do you have more of a positive or a negative response to you with like clients? Like, the people, do they usually think that you're like,
I have a positive response. That's one thing, like, knock on wood, that I can say I've always gotten a very positive response from my clients.
Yeah.
Even if when they're mad at me, like, because
I mean, like, in the beginning, like, do they know that, like, you're there to, like, for their benefit? Or do they think that you're just, like, part of the system, like, fuck you, like, well, I don't want to deal with you and shit?
it all depends,
Yeah.
too. Like, because there are times where, like, I've walked in and been like, you fucking white bitch, get the fuck away from me. And I totally get it. And I'm like, all
okay.
right. I'm like, I get it, yo. I'm like, here's the deal. Like, this is who I work for. If you want to talk to me, let's talk. If you don't, I get it.
Yeah.
Because I understand. Because some of those kids, the only white people in the system that they've dealt with have been, or white people that they've dealt with have been people in the system who've come in and fucked up their families.
Yeah, so it gives them a negative.
Right.
Yeah.
And my thing is
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and I don't
fucked up.
take offense to it. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I don't
because
think
I'm
you
like,
can.
all right, I get it. You know what I mean? And I've always been able to really like gain a rapport with kids because I hear them out.
Yeah.
You know, I don't treat them like they're little fucking psychopaths. Even though, listen, it's very rare, but I worked in a psych hospital and there are kids that are that dangerous. You know?
Yeah, I
And
mean, I'm sure that there's definitely some that are crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I obviously can't tell you the place that it happened at, but I had an 8-year-old like describe to me like that she was gonna murder me. Like she said to me, she was like, "Hey," she was like, "Miss Maria," and I was like, "What?" She's like, "You see?" She was like, "I'm gonna go into that kitchen over there." And she's like, and while you're writing on the chalkboard, she's like, I'm going to come up real quiet and I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to take it out of the kitchen. And then I'm going to come up to you while you're at the chalkboard and I'm going to stab you with it. And I said,
Jeez.
okay. I was like, all right. I was like, you ready to go back to lunch? I figure out where it was, but we were sitting in a room by ourselves. But also too, like sometimes like the kid's going to say that for attention. Like, oh, kids will say all types of shit for attention. Like,
yeah, so like, and it comes from like your judgment and your professional to be able to sort out what is the bullshit and like what is authentic, right?
Right. And I think that
I feel like it's such a, like, I have so much anxiety just by like you talking to me a little bit about what this is going on, just because like, you know, my job is like, you know, I do like piping, like pieces of piping and shit. And it's like, you know, if a piece is fucked up, but like you're dealing with like, you know, fucking kids' lives and shit. And it's like super intense. And like, I don't know, it gives me anxiety even just talking about it.
I mean, it's crazy, but it's honestly like, I don't.
Super rewarding, I'm sure, whenever things are good.
When you see a kid get it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that's the big thing. Like, because now I'm becoming like an expert in trauma and childhood trauma and how to do that therapy, help the kid process through.
How do you become an
trauma.
expert in these things? Do you have to study old cases and shit?
No, this is how I became an expert in juvenile court. Or not juvenile court, but like just in juvenile justice.
Yeah.
So I learned about like the Act 33 process during grad school, like my last year of grad school. And my mentor, Jeff Shook, took me under his wing and introduced me to this dude named Randy Matusak. Randy, I love him to death. He's a fucking asshole. You either love him or you hate him. He's a fucking asshole, but I love him.
Yeah.
He's a pain in my fucking ass, and I've yelled at him. But he's also my mentor, like, you know, and he taught me how to do forensic stuff. So I was like at the public defender still. I think it was like my last day, and I was going to lunch, and I ran into the attorney Patrick Nightingale. Who's like he's like the head of Normal. He's like a big weed attorney.
Okay.
Yeah. So I ran into him and I was like, Pat, I was like, I'm starting to get into like Act 33 stuff. I was like, so if you have an Act 33 case, I was like, I'll do it pro bono. I was like,
what does that mean,
expert,
pro bono?
For free. I was like, because Randy had told me, he was like, to be an expert, you have to be qualified on the stand.
Yeah.
So what they call it is like a voir dire. So Pat was like, yeah, he's like, I have a case that you can do. So I did this case for him.
I got something for you for free. Why not?
Yeah, he's like, sure, fuck it. Like, but I just wanted to be qualified. So
yeah, for sure.
So what happens is they put you on the stand and they go over. They call it the voir dire. So it's like they go over basically your resume, and so they'll see like, you know, like they want to know your experience.
Yeah,
and they want to know your education. So like, you know, my education was at Pitt. I've experienced because I worked in, you know, a children's psychiatric facility. I've done residential treatment. I was at the public defender as the intern. Like there were so many things that...
Yeah, a lot of experiences.
A lot of experience that basically the judge was like, all right, granted, you know, and the DA can actually like argue back, like they can ask you questions too, like so the DA can say like,
okay, that makes sense.
in the first time the DA did it, there was only one DA that tried to fight me on my credentials, and it was her, and I have like a kind of weird relationship because she knows me from when I was a student, like an intern.
Yeah.
And the judge was like, no, she's an expert. Like she's like her expertise is granted.
So they pull you into certain cases to give your advice.
Right. So they'll call me on Act 33. Like Act 33 is I testify a lot on. So like it all depends. Like there's a couple other experts, like there's psychiatrists and stuff, but they're really expensive.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrists don't really like to do the Act 33s. Also, psychiatrists and psychologists do things like very differently from social workers. And what they're finding is it's more important to you have to tell that kid's, like I go through every domain with that kid. So like I'll talk to their parent, like how was their birth?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did they have
so like if there's a problem with like so like any of your, I'm just trying to piece all this shit together. So like any of your clients, like if you have a client, you go through like their entire like as much as you can and gain as much knowledge as you can.
Yeah.
You just gotta be a straight creep.
All right, and then I have to make like an expert opinion of like, can I find a place?
Like build a story with all your pieces of information. Like that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy.
It seems to be like I could definitely like understand how it's crazy interesting, but like you know like it just gives me anxiety. Like the whole thing. Like I just feel that I'm like a super good judge of character, but like you know like talking to a bunch of different people and like young kids and everything, I feel like my emotions would get in the way whenever talking to like dealing with kids.
It's hard.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, and that's why like I have a crazy big respect for that because like anyone that could deal with like, you know, like kids, like doctors dealing with like kids with cancer and shit like that shit rips me apart, you know? And I mean, like dealing with kids that have like mental problems and like, you know, home problems and shit like that. It's, I don't know. It's just, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, it's rough. I think like, and it's kind of, it's fucked up because there are things that I'm very desensitized to.
Yeah.
Very desensitized to because I've heard it all.
Yeah.
You know, like I've heard it.
Do you have to, or so how you say, like how you say, like how Michael.
How you say, yeah.
I'm
how
sorry.
you say,
yeah.
I know, The Office, dude,
yeah,
it's the greatest
it's the best
thing ever.
But like, you know, like you said, you live it. So if someone calls you, like, have you had to go into like houses that were like shit's just going crazy right now?
Oh fuck yeah, we have. So at my job, we have to do on call every. I think it's like 15 weeks.
Okay.
And basically like it's on. We do 24/7 on call, so it's after hours. So like when their therapist isn't available, like you got to go out. Like I've walked into like kids and parents fist fighting each other.
So what do you do in that situation? If there's violence going on, like what do you have to do? Call the cops?
You have to, I mean, if there's like hardcore violence like that and you can't get them to stop, then yeah. But usually like I'm very good at like de-escalation. Like I'll go in like very flat, like just no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, all right, come on, stop. You know, like stop. Like, and I've found that works because if somebody has to stay. And it's crazy because I'm known to not be so.
That's what I was gonna say. Like
even keel.
Yeah, like on other things, like on Facebook, like I see you've ripped some people apart.
Oh yeah, dude. Because I'm passionate.
Yeah, very passionate,
I mean?
and that's another reason. Like I wanted to have you on. Like you could tell that, like for people that like for me, like I know you a little bit more than other people, but just from me like following you over these years, like I could tell that you're like super passionate about this shit because it's not like a job that like is like super like what's the word? Like not everyone is gonna wanna. It's not made for everyone. You got to be a certain type of person.
Yeah, that's what. Like I was talking to somebody today, and they were like asking me about an opportunity that I might be taking. Like they're like, "You comfortable in the jails? Are you comfortable?" I was like, "Yeah, fine." It's never bothered me.
Yeah,
and the thing is too is like as an expert or as like a mitigation or somebody doing like mitigation on a case. you are part of the legal team, so you're not with a guard. You're in there by yourself with them.
Yeah.
I've just never felt that way. I mean, but I also too, like, I interned at a child psych hospital as well. So I saw like some crazy shit there.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, but there are cases that are sad. But you have to like, I mean, it took me years to kind of get like this self-care thing down. So like, I have a separate work phone.
Yeah.
For like my therapy job. I shut it off. Like,
Yeah.
it's done. Like, you know, the expert stuff, like, I do on my own time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really not, with the expert stuff, you're not really making relationships because you're not there to do that.
It's just they call you when they need you, right?
Well, you're objective too. You have to be objective too, because you can't, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you don't have a dog in the fight. You're just trying to like.
Right, because I could very easily be like, no, I can't recommend to send this kid back to juvenile. But yeah, I mean, but it's also interesting too, because like I think back about like all the times that like I've cried and just been so fucking pissed off at like whether it be like the system, you know, just what, and it's always usually the system.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they fail them. I feel that they really fail just kids as a whole. And it all comes down to money, you know, and it's really fucked up. But
as far as what, like facilities and shit, or
facilities, the ways that the
care and shit like that.
The care, they want us to do more with less, and they're not understanding like I don't think that they really get that how complex some of these kids are. I mean, some of these kids have been through some really fucked.
And I think that's what I think it boils down to ignorance. Like people might have like you could tell me 100 kids' stories, but like, you know, like people never understand it until they've had to go through it.
Right.
So like, you know, like if it's just some dude that grew up good that was like making these decisions, like he might not be as like you know, empathetic. You know, like that's just from like an outsider's point of view. But you know, that's what how is it even possible to gain more financial like security to be able to do more things? Like what is how can you do that?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the big things is that legislation needs to change, a lot of legislation, because I think that overall, and these are just like my two worlds colliding of like mental health and criminal justice, specifically juvenile justice. I think that we're not looking at, and when it comes to mental health, like I'm not even really talking about diagnosis. Fuck diagnosis. You could fit a person into everything. Yeah. Now, no doubt there are people that, you know, you hear borderline personality disorder, they are borderline personality, like that's them. But it doesn't mean that that's not the whole person, right?
Yeah.
But I think everything boils down to trauma. And I think that we're not, the issue is that like we have this legislation in place. You know, I think that it's bullshit that we're charging kids as adults for robberies and things like that. I understand it's a heinous crime, but you also have to look at these certain factors. Now, the age of 21 is the age that you can stay in the juvenile system in Pennsylvania.
You could be in juvie in 21?
Mm-hmm. You can stay in that system until you're 21. So that's why,
why is that?
I don't know why they picked that age, but I think it's a good age because, and I think honestly too, there's states that are looking at it even older because they're telling us the brain doesn't fully develop until 25.
That's interesting. I never knew that. I always thought it was like, you know, like 18 if you're lucky. I feel like I always had the assumption that if you did something bad enough and you were 17, they would just ship you over.
Well, they can, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we had a whole in the 90s, you know, when this get tough on crime thing happened in mass incarceration, we had these laws, these juvenile laws came in because there was this whole myth of like the super predator, right? Like these young black children are going to come and rape and pillage and do whatever the fuck. Well, it never occurred. It was a myth. Yeah. However, people took it so seriously that they made these asinine laws. And, you know, there's like, we have a jail, like the one prison, SCI Pine Grove. Pine Grove was built specifically for young offenders.
Why do you say that?
Well, because they thought that they were going to have so many young offenders, right, in jail because of these new laws that they were going to be able to fill. What they made it 500 beds. So now they still have the youthful offender program. The prison, though, isn't all youthful offenders. That's what they originally built it for, because they were passing these laws. Now in Pennsylvania, we do have the highest amount of juvenile lifers in the entire nation.
Really?
534. And
Jesus.
about 150 of them have been resentenced.
And that ranges from 10 to what, 21 or 18?
10 to 18.
10 to 18.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So there was an 11-year-old, and this is like a really fucking crazy case. That's like another thing too, is like, you know, like when I'm bored, like, you know, I'll be like, whatever, like taking my MMJ.
Yeah.
You know, thanks for the card. Anyways, Pennsylvania. But I would just read about things, and I'll read about different cases. And I read there's this case that it interests me. It's from Philadelphia, like in 1999, like this 11-year-old girl, like, who was very mentally ill. She fucking stabbed and killed some woman. And they were trying to figure out, like, do we treat her as a juvenile? Do we treat her as an adult? She ended
11
up
years old?
She was 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was a really sick kid. The story is Miriam. Her name is Miriam White.
Yeah.
And the story always really interested me because she was actually a very sick little girl. Like,
As terrible as it is, like, I just get infatuated with like those types of stories.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hard not to just like gravitate towards all the fucked up shit, and like that's terrible. It's dark, but like, you know, that's the stuff that interests me. But like,
well, and my mom was like I always knew about serial killers, and shit like that, because my mom, like, she read about all that shit, so I knew about fucking like Ted Bundy. You know, how to, like.
Well, so what happened to that little girl, like 11 years old?
She is actually I believe she's still in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like an article that was written about her a couple years ago that said she's like in the restricted housing unit, and she's just sick, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the thing, is that there are kids out there like that are so sick that, but you can't, because it's like trauma. It changes your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for instance, like I had a 8-year-old kid that experienced like significant trauma when he was 3.5. He's stuck at that age. So he'll do things that a 3.5-year-old will do.
Yeah.
So it's like they're stuck at that age. Or they'll do things where it's like fight or flight. So a lot of kids, you know, that get in trouble, that do these criminal activity, it's a fight or flight behavior.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's the same, you know, Antoine Rose. I mean, God forbid, like that kid, you know, and he wasn't doing shit, but he ran out of the car because
exactly, like
that's what they're like. You know, he was terrified.
I think the best part about Facebook nowadays is to weed out the psychopaths that you thought you knew at one time.
Yep.
And you know, like I don't post a bunch of shit on Facebook. If I post something on Facebook, it's about like a fucking dog or a cat or like something funny, because there's so much negative
Facebook,
shit.
Right. Like, yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's some people that just have to talk on their soapbox. And like, you see these people that were like, the fucking kid shouldn't have ran. He got what he deserved. He was a criminal. And like, you're just like, are you fucking insane? Like, in the world that we live in today, where there's literally countless videos of white cops rolling up on black dudes and literally just shooting them and just being able to take a paid leave, you're expecting this kid that is exposed to it on his cell phone at all times to not think firsthand, like, oh, cop behind me, even if I did have a fucking pocket full of drugs and a gun or whatever. Like, what do you expect him to do? Do you think he's going to be like, sir, I have a fucking gun and drugs? Like, no, he's going to try to run away. And
absolutely.
Like,
and that was, he didn't even have any.
I know. And that's the thing. Like, you'll see people online that are like, he had all this shit. Like, it was shown that he had nothing.
Nothing.
And it's so fucked up because, like, you know, like them people that are online that are just like, you know, like, yeah, he got what he deserved. Why did he run? Like the whole question, why did he run? Dude, like what do you expect? There's literally videos of dudes choking people out, killing them, and that dude's just like, you know,
and they see that every day.
Every day, and that's
day.
my point. Like, I literally I'm addicted to my cell phone.
Yeah.
If something's going on in the world, I know what's going on with it because, like, I'm looking at my fucking phone every day. If you're taking a shit, if you're looking if you're doing anything, you're scrolling on your phone, and like those instances are so like popularized because like it's important to know.
You know, and I talk to my, you know, black friends about this a lot. It has to be very difficult to be raising a black son.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because it's scary because, you know, anything that they do, they could be the most perfect kid. And
exactly.
It's still not enough for society, and it sucks, you know, and it really, now, you know, with the Antoine Rose thing, I mean, Pittsburgh really stood up, but I will say,
for
like,
sure.
That, you know, and, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, with the police, but I do think that this isn't over.
Yeah,
this is, and people are like, they're grieving. Like, you have a community that's grieving, and I think that Pittsburgh also too, we don't have a good history when it comes to the police.
Yeah, not at all.
You know, and it sucks because we did have this chief that came in, the Chief McLay, who wanted to change shit. What did they do? They fucking got him out. Like,
see, I have no idea about any of that, but like that whole thing was just like that was such like a big deal because, like, you know, I don't watch the news, but like Facebook is a terrible news source, but like that's where you see important thing, or that's where you see popular things that are going on. But like, I mean, what do you expect? And I don't know how people can just like keep saying like, oh yeah, like why did he run? Like, dude, you don't fucking have any idea what it would feel like. I mean, I wouldn't either. So it's just like, how could you even give an opinion?
Kid. He wasn't even like the way that I knew him was I used to see him skating around his neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I had another, you know, I have kids over that area, you know, that I work with. He wasn't, and regardless if he wasn't a system kid or was a system kid, this is what they're living with. And they, you know, have said, you know, if they would just stop and talk to us, you know, like, what do they want us to do? They won't let us hang here. There's nowhere for us to go. So what do they do? I mean, but it's also too, you know.
If you're a police officer, now you're in this world of just like, you know, like every day you're just like going to mediate things or handle different things. It's just, when is it like, you know, like I couldn't be a police officer. I'd be scared of everything. And it wouldn't matter if you were white, black, or anything. Like, I would just be fucking afraid of anything because, like, you know, there's always an instant where someone could just fucking pull out a gun and just shoot you real quick, and you have to be on your toes. But, like, you know, it's just so crazy to me that there's just, like, random kids that could just go to school to be a cop and carry around a pistol, and they just have, like, some get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
Whenever they just like shoot someone, like they're human beings just like up. Like that dude was probably getting fucked up in a field next to a bonfire in high school, drinking Vladimir, just like your friend that does concrete the whole time.
Right.
Like those are real human beings. So like, what makes them?
Well, I think also too, like policing nowadays is not what it used to be. Like there's this militarization of the police department. So you have police departments that have tanks, that, you know, even like I remember, you know, at protests, dude, like the riot cops coming out for fucking what, dude? Like for what? They start more shit really than the people in the crowds do. You know, in this, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, you had beat cops. You had cops that walked the neighborhood that knew everything, everybody, knew everything. And you weren't scared of the police officer because you knew him, right?
Yeah.
It's a very different.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? It's a very different.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's just like, you know, it's just a weird, I don't know, it's just a weird situation.
Yeah,
whole
I mean,
thing
we're
about
in
it.
weird times. I mean,
It's a weird time in life. It really is, because like, you know, and the only thing that I think is keeping any sort of like rein on anything is the fact that everyone has a video camera in their phone
Oh yeah.
at all times, because like, you know, it's fucking nuts now.
Childish Gambino says that in This Is America. He says, you know, that's a tool.
Yeah.
Because it is a tool. You know, it is. You're showing America. You know, you're basically showing America it back to itself.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. He's unreal, Childish Gambino.
Oh,
Did you watch
yeah, man.
Atlanta?
No, everyone's been telling me to watch.
I just
Atlanta.
binge watched it like 2 weeks ago.
Did you?
It was
Is it on-
fantastic.
is it on
it's on
Netflix?
Hulu,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's, you know, half-hour episodes regardless though. I think my whole you know, like I love talking to people about shit, but like, you know, I'm so ignorant to everything. I'm just an idiot that knows like a little bit about a lot of things. And you know, like that's why I feel like this podcast like kind of gives me an outlet to like be genuine to people.
Yeah.
As far as like, I feel like a genuine conversation is way better than like a scripted one. And like, you know, like it's just, it leads the way that it naturally goes, and you start, I don't know.
And you know, it is. It's good because, like, even listening to like the older episodes, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, and like me talking to you, like I have no like education about this and stuff. So I feel like, you know, now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like I feel like I sound like a fucking idiot trying to talk about all this stuff. But like, you know, it's just
Believe me, I was like that for 4 years before I even knew any of this shit.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just it's interesting to like kind of get a glimpse inside all that.
Yeah. I mean, but I would like to, you know, because I feel like it was all depressing. They do funny shit.
Yeah.
They say funny shit. Like,
I mean, I'm sure it's not all bad. Yeah.
But I would love to like be able to bring that world of music and art and graffiti into like something
a
like
constructive way to like channel.
Yeah, like for them to be able to process their trauma in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you know, they should be able to do graffiti if they want to. Give them a room and let them do it.
Now, is there any places that like in these facilities that allow them to have any sort of outlet like that to do anything?
Some, but not really.
Not
like,
as good as it should be.
Not as good as it should be.
And I feel like a lot of people would think like, oh, these kids are like in jail or whatever. Like, why should they have like the freedom to do that? And like, you know, like on the podcast, I try to think of like devil's advocate type things because I feel like that starts, you know, an explanation of like why, like, you know, like because I know that there's a bunch of people in the world that are just like, why would you give them the opportunity to like, you know, go do things like that? But
they have to learn how to earn things.
Exactly. So like, I mean, like you have to be able to like, I mean, if you're going to just leave them in a fucking cage the whole time with no sort of like reward, why would they ever want to get better?
Right. They're never going to get
know what I
better,
mean?
you know?
I don't know. It's just a fascinating world because, like, I mean, I think that none of us. I think it really all stems down to being like the brain is fucking crazy, and like, it's wild that humans are learning a lot about it to be able to like help other humans manage their problems in their head or life. I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating to me.
Like, there's this guy that's doing this. I forget what his name is, but he's out at this it's Manitoba treatment center. I think it's like in Wisconsin or something. But he did this study on kids that he calls the right term is kids with callous and unemotional traits, but it's basically what they're saying is mini psychopaths. Kids that show like no empathy, no remorse,
yeah, no emotion at all or anything.
no emotion at all. And I've worked with kids like that.
Yeah.
But they're starting to do actual tests on them to see certain things. So like they're starting to see like their brain chemistry is very different from others. A lot of times they have a lower heartbeat. But they're
Really?
they have a lower heartbeat and they're trying to see is that why they crave this excitement?
Shit.
Like why, you know.
That's pretty wild.
Then there's like also like the facial recognition stuff. So they're seeing that these kids with these traits don't really know how to read facial recognition. So if they see somebody, they don't know if they're scared
Yeah.
or not. So I think it's cool because I think we've always had this thing in our heads of like, oh, if somebody has a psychopath diagnosis or whatever, or is labeled a psychopath, you can't treat them. But is that really true?
Yeah, and
know?
I think the further we get into life, the more technology we're gonna have
Yeah.
to be able to like learn about all this shit.
Right. And
It's
you
fucking
may not-
insane to think about like 100 years ago they just had nothing and they're just
Yeah,
like
you
you know
just used
keeping
to throw
people
people.
alive and
Yeah,
you know
you just-
doing surgery on people and shit. That's fucking insane to think about.
Yeah, it's like completely, it's nuts, you know. And I think that because the brain is interesting, like it's extremely, you know,
We don't even know nothing about it. It's like the ocean. We only know like little
we only know
percentage
little
about it.
pieces. Yeah,
It's fucking nuts.
yeah, it is really crazy.
So like what's your next move with all this? You're just gonna keep fighting the good fight with all this shit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing like more trauma therapy stuff, but I really like would like to at some point either have my own facility or be able to write like my own program,
Yeah.
or be able to maybe do trauma therapy like with juveniles who are in adult jails.
Yeah.
Because I think that processing that trauma and giving them the option to do that is important.
Yeah.
And I think that even addressing it and addressing things like in a trauma-informed manner of instead of like, what's wrong with you? What
Yeah.
happened to you? Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I never really, you know, and I had said before, like earlier in the podcast, like kids who sexually offend, that always freaked me out, right?
Yeah.
But then I worked with them and it was like, they really are just, they're repeating the behaviors that that happened to them.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
in their head, they think it's normal. And that's like a crazy thing too. Is
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point. Like if someone was sexually abusing kids, like
yeah.
they were making that seem normal. So
Yeah, I mean, like I had
and people
kids all the
developing
time.
their brain while they're thinking that that's normal, and it like kind of like rooting into them.
I
Wow,
had a
that's
kid the
fucking
one time
fascinating.
that asked me, he was like dead serious, dude. And I almost busted out laughing, but then I had to really like pull myself back. But he asked me, he said to me, and he was very like quiet about it and like, Miss Maria, I have a question for you. And he was like, is it true if you don't masturbate and you get blue balls, or if you get blue balls and you don't masturbate, that your testicles can explode? Dead fucking, I mean, dude, dead fucking serious.
I would have
And I'm
laughed
like,
at him.
But then it like kind of clicked with me of like, no, they have no fucking idea really
Yeah.
what, and
Might have
it's-
just heard one thing and forever thought that was it.
right. Like it distorts their mind so much, but they can be healed. They
Yeah.
can be rehabilitated. And, that's my whole big thing of like, we keep throwing all of these people in prison, right?
Yeah.
And tons of these people are nonviolent offenders.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
what are we really doing? Like, and because it's not they're not rehabilitating anyone in prisons. They're not. Like, they'll offer them certain services.
But it's not what it needs to be.
No, it could be completely different. But there's also too this whole fight of money. It all comes down to fucking money.
Yeah.
Of like what they, what they're willing to pay for and who they really give a fuck about.
It's Rogan just mentioned something on his podcast about private prisons and about how fucked up it is.
Oh, yeah.
About how like there's been like documented evidence of people like signing deals. Like the one dude accepted like $1 million payment to like harbor people to these private prisons to make them look like more popular and established and shit.
Look
and
up
that's
the Kids
fucking
for Cash. Look
That's
up Kids
what it
for
was.
Cash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kids for Cash. And
Yeah.
that's fucking insane to me.
And there's a documentary about it because there was a kid that killed himself, that he couldn't handle it because, like, listen, juvenile institutions, they're not, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
These can be very, very traumatic. And the other problem is, too, is that a kid that becomes institutionalized, once you get them out in the community and
Yeah.
they don't have that structure of stability, they go right back in. So there needs to also be work on that too, of like, we need more
like constant
aftercare.
progression outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you send a kid home that was in placement for a year and a half, you send him home with nothing, and then 2 months later he fucking shoots
Yeah.
a gun into an empty house.
It's almost like the military. Like the military, you're in the military for so long, you're like, you know, that's a certain way of living, and then you're just coming back to being a civilian. That's like some people go nuts, kind of.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's pretty wild.
They're not gonna, like, I don't think that they're thinking about that at all. I think that it's just they're doing what they want, and I think that people, you know, I think that, and that's why I like being where I'm at as a social worker in the criminal justice system, because I do think that this is new
Yeah.
for us. I think we need more people to do that, because these are people too, you know, and they need that treatment, especially the kids, because if you want them to be even somewhat a productive citizen,
Yeah.
you know, working a job or whatever, they might not have any empathy, but at least doing something. You can't just lock the key, you know, throw them. What?
Yeah,
Like,
you gotta
what do
give
you
them some way to, like. That's fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're pretty wild. That, and like I said, that's the reason that, like, I thought it would be interesting to talk to you, because, like, you know, like, I fucking know you as, like, you know, just bumping Wu-Tang and chilling with all us,
Yeah.
and, like, you're doing some wild ass shit that's, like, not as.
I still bump Wu-Tang, and, you know.
I'm sure you do, but I mean, like, it's cool to see people that are doing things that are just like.
I never expected this.
Yeah, like,
I
what did
really
you want to
never
do?
did.
Like, did you ever have like a dream job whenever you were younger?
Not really. Like, there were times where I was like, I want to be a psychologist, or,
Yeah.
you know, I want to do this, or I want to do that, but it wasn't like it
100%.
didn't-
Like,
Right. And even when I was in grad school, I knew I wanted to work with kids, but I didn't know where my niche was, and it didn't hit me in the face until I interned at the public defender, because that was literally, it was almost like I was really scared to do that internship, because attorneys usually don't like social workers, from what I've heard. And that wasn't the case when I went into the office, because I really listened and I was very helpful. I wasn't there to just get coffee. Like, I worked cases.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was doing when it came to it. And I just really loved working with the attorneys, and I loved that position.
and it kind of just all stuck.
It slapped me in the face, like, holy shit, because I was thinking about going to be a probation officer, and everyone was at the PD's office was like, you're defense now. You're
Yeah.
criminal defense. Now look, if the prosecution ever asks me to testify for them, I look at the case and see
Yeah.
if it would be possible, but I've always been called by the defense. You know, but that's when it really slapped me in the face of, like, mental health and criminal justice. That's what you need to do. You need to focus on kids. And then it was just kind of, you know, even the trauma stuff. Like, I always did touch on trauma, but I didn't get really, really into it until my CEO at the current company that I'm at offered us, like, a few of us, to do this, like, intensive training. And I
Yeah.
was one of the people that was picked. Because they thought that I'd be really good at it and that I had an interest in it, and, you know, they were right.
And you love your job?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure it has its ups and its downs.
it has its ups and its downs. I mean,
and I'm sure your highs are higher and your lowers are lower, but I mean,
I've been there for 3 years, like, my current place, and I do work with some great people. Like, I have amazing supervisors. Like, because they've done the work before, so they know, you know.
instead of people that just got that high position.
Right, and they're just
Yeah.
like, fuck you, you do this. Like,
Yeah,
no,
I
like,
get what
my
you mean.
bosses, and even up to the CEO, like the CFO. Like, I talk to my CEO, like, all the time, and I'll just talk to her about, like, just bullshit, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, because I like a lot of the stuff that we do at the agency, you know? Like, there's, like, no doubt, like, you have your days where you're just like, fuck this, and you
Yeah.
cry.
Just
and,
like everyone has at work.
right, like, and it does, like, get intense, but that's also too where good supervision comes in. So, like, your like my supervisor, I talk to her probably like twice a week after work, and we'll just talk about fucking trauma shit.
Yeah.
Or like laugh about a case or whatever. That's another thing. Like, you have to laugh at this job, because if you don't, you'll fucking go
nuts, I'm sure.
You go completely insane. Like, and because you have these cases where some of them just, it's like unexplainable, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, the person is so unstable that it's just, you have to laugh, because if you don't, like, you'll cry.
Yeah.
But I also think too, like, you have to like love it. Like, I think that there's certain social workers that would never do what I do.
Yeah.
Never. But I also would never do what they do. I never wanted to be like a medical social worker, 9 to 5. It's boring to me.
I feel like it would be. I feel like certain people gravitate towards certain ways.
I make my own schedule. I mean, I do work a lot.
Yeah.
I do. Like, and I'm adding on more. Like, but it's stuff that I love and stuff that I want to do.
Yeah, that you're like passionate about. It's not really just like technically it's technically work, but it's not like work to you.
Right.
Stuff
it's like I enjoy, it doesn't it's not really work for me to read through placement recommendation or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Just to like, I get what you're saying. And that makes sense.
I mean, I didn't get married, and I haven't had a kid, but I'm also 35. That's never been one of, like, as a woman, and I hate like that people, in my family, not like my mom or my close aunts or uncles or anything, but like just cousins and stuff. I hate when it's, well, when are you gonna settle down? When are you gonna get married?
Like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah, like, fucking.
We got married, and it's always like, when are you gonna have a kid? It's like, back the fuck up. Like,
right. Like,
you have one.
Yeah, but I think it's like also our generation too.
Yeah, it's
like,
definitely our generation.
Right, like, you expect us to do this, but we don't want to.
Yeah, just like people were expected to get a regular 9 to 5 job. It's just like, it's not the same world that our adults,
right,
that older adults were raised in.
Right, like, our parents were able to,
like, having a business on your phone to my mother is, so bizarre.
So bizarre.
You know what I mean? Like, it's probably not like people make millions of dollars off their phone. Just and like, those are just the possibilities of today, and it's just a different world regardless.
It really is. I mean, and it's sometimes it's like, it's a good thing. It's a gift and a curse, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely both.
Kids do shit on social media, so I'm like, like I'll tell kids, like, you can't put crazy shit on your
if it's
media.
out there, it's out there.
Yeah, because they'll fight on Facebook Live, and they'll just do dumb shit.
Yeah, like, that's
you can't have the name John Shoulda Never Snitchin' Smith.
Yeah,
I just made that up. But really, like, that, you
for sure.
Put it in when you have fucking gun charges. What are you fucking doing? Like,
just think a little bit through. That makes sense, though.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's definitely interesting. You definitely have an interesting job. I'm sure people will find it interesting.
I hope so.
I think that I don't know. I think you're good. I think you're good for what you do.
Thanks. It could be like a whole. I always said they could do like a Pittsburgh version of The Wire.
Oh yeah,
and I could just be one storyline, just my fucking job, because it's so,
All right, so let's get to that. Now that you said The Wire, let's get to the best part of the podcast.
Okay.
The ending of the podcast, I do a segment called Desert Island Questions.
Oh, sweet. Like when Ryan started the fire on the Office.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Okay.
I give people 3 options. Okay, so I give people 3 options, 3 choices for each option to take with you on a desert island to watch, read, and listen to over and over and over again. Okay. So the first category is movies. To pick 3 movies, TV series. You can take whole series, anything.
Can I pick TV series?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pick 3 TV series.
Okay.
The Office.
Okay.
The Wire.
Okay.
And Beverly Hills 90210.
The original.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That shit is the greatest shit ever, dude, because there's so much craziness that goes on. Like,
I used to watch out with my mom with that and Melrose Place.
Dude, Kelly like survived a fire. She was raped. She killed.
I don't remember
somebody.
any of that really.
Oh, dude, I need to. There's a whole podcast on Beverly Hills, and they just cut up the entire time.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Again with This.
Jeez.
It's really fucking good.
I might have to look that up.
It's great.
Those were good. Those were good choices. The Wire, I've never watched.
The Wire is one of the greatest. It's so much more than a cops and drug dealer show. It's the life and death of the American city.
Some people have told me that The Wire is overrated.
Really?
A lot of people have told me that, but I want to watch it. Like I know I have to watch it because like it's I know that it's like it's a legendary show, but obviously The Office is unreal.
I watch it literally every day.
Yeah,
because
it's like medicine. That's what I tell my wife. I got to take medicine, and she goes, "I ain't fucking watching this again."
Yeah, like I'll just have it running in the background. Dude,
yeah,
because
even if I'm not doing anything, if I'm just editing with my headphones on, it'll still just be playing.
Yeah,
you know, sometimes at work I'll play an episode and not watch it, but I'll listen to it.
Yeah,
and just let it play through, and it's fucking.
And it's one of the greatest shows ever.
It really is. Do you read?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people don't read, so I give people 3 options to take books with them.
Okay.
To the desert island. Do you have 3 books that you would take with you?
Yeah, this is gonna be hard.
You're a big reader?
Yeah, I like to read a lot.
Okay.
No, I haven't read like a novel in a minute.
Yeah.
But I'd have to say 1984.
Ooh, second week in a row that someone has said that.
Said 1984. It's a great book. It's depressing as fuck.
It wasn't the second. It was Billy said that, or Anthony. Billy.
Oh yeah,
Boyle,
he
whatever.
did say
1984,
that.
1984,
yeah. 1984. See this one's fucking hard because I love books. Lesson Zero by Bret Easton Ellis.
I've never read that. What's that about?
That's a really good book. It's about like these like this kid in the 80s, like he's like rich as fuck, and him and his like 2 friends like do fucking just dope coke, like the whole like, but it's like really, it's hard to explain, but it's a good book. They made a movie and the movie sucks.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's a shame.
But and then a third Physician's Dex reference in it. No, a third shit. That is the great, like, Physician's Dex.
Yeah.
Maybe like something like funny, like Stephen Colbert, I Am America, something to make me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I coming up through school, like I never read, and then like I'll go through spurts where I'll just like, you know, become obsessed, and I'll rip through like 3 books, and then I just won't read for a year, and then I'll just like jump back into it. But like I just got the Robin Williams book, like it's pretty thick, but I would love to. That's what I'm eyeing up next. I tried to read fucking It last year before.
That's a great book I read. Did you ever read The Stand?
Fuck that. Listen, I appreciate what Stephen King does, but I
he's
don't
just
need
too much of a right. Yeah,
I don't need 50 pages about what's on a fucking table, and like I just want it to be like kind of condensed down to it. But I get it. That's just the way his style is. He's very descriptive and vivid. Like, but I don't need like I want to leave my mind to what things are gonna look like. I don't want to read every single detail.
Yeah,
the row of lights has 2 light bulbs out. Like I don't need that.
Yeah,
but you know, like, did you like it? The movie, the new one?
I did like the new one.
I thought it was good.
Usually I don't like.
Yeah, it was.
I thought it was good.
I didn't set a big like high bar to it because like you can't like really compare them.
Right.
But I thought it was good. It reminded me of Stranger Things. I like any movie or TV show with like young kids like in a group. That's what the Monster Squad is. You ever see that?
No, I never saw the Monster Squad.
It's real good. It's better than the Goonies, but it's like the Goonies, but they're fighting all the, you know, Dracula, Wolfman, the Mummy, Frankenstein.
Oh shit! When did it come out? The 80s?
84.
Oh,
the best.
see.
It's the best, and the graphics in it, like, or not the graphics even, but the special effects, like the makeup and everything, is unreal. I have a whole leg tattoo of it. It's my favorite movie ever, but I would watch that. Okay, so you got Stephen Colbert. You got the what was the second one you picked? You picked 1984. Oh yeah, Less Than Zero.
But I feel like I wouldn't, because that's too depressing.
Yeah,
books.
I feel like on a
that's a hard fucking question. The book one, dude.
See, like if it was me, I would definitely take The Outsiders.
That's a great book.
I loved it.
Ooh, The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, that was
I take
good.
that, but that's also depressing.
I liked Watership Down. Did you ever read that?
No, but I saw the fucking movie.
Yeah, the
dude.
cartoon, super fucked up.
He did the other. What was the other one called that he did too? Something dogs.
I can't remember. There was very few books that I read in high school. I would copy off everyone. Like we would have to do. We would have these binders that had like all study guides. So it was questions that you had to like read the book, and along the book there would be questions you would only be able to answer if you read
that part.
Yeah, so like one person would do it and everyone would just copy off everyone.
Yeah, that's
it's like a cancer of dumb people. But okay, the third category is music.
All right.
Yeah, this would be a good
I can
one.
only pick three.
Ah,
shit.
You can pick greatest hits, you can pick essentials, but only three.
All right, I'm gonna pick. If we could do a great, see, but that's hard. All right, I'm gonna pick Wu-Tang Clan. I'm not gonna pick 36 Chambers. I'm gonna pick. No, hold on. All right, hold on. Scratch that.
Okay.
Jizza, Genius, Liquid Swords.
Okay.
Number one. The Clash.
Okay, that's a good one.
London Calling.
No one has ever said the Clash on here yet.
Yeah, The Clash, London Calling, and.
It got to be the Beach Boys, right? You're gonna be stuck on a desert
yeah,
island?
but if I'm stuck, but it's like
Yeah, I get
I
it.
want the Beach Boys Pet Sounds, but then I'm also like looking into like, all right, what soul music would I want?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's a hard question. That's why I ask people.
really tough question.
Yeah, because some people will usually like break it up into genres like rock, soft, like metal or whatever like that. But just like movies, like my wife whenever I was asking her whenever she was on here, I was like, I asked her all the questions and she was like, well, what would you pick? And I was like, I don't know what I would pick.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do movies. I had to do a TV series because
Yeah.
like movies, dude, that's so hard. Because I also too I love documentaries. Like I'm hardcore into fucking documentaries. But then I also like a lot of like.
Did you watch Wild Wild Country?
Yes, dude. Sheila is I don't know if she I really don't know how.
She's
to
a gangster.
Like, she is a gangster.
But she's very scary. Like I bet you she
Yeah.
definitely did some wild shit.
Well,
but
dude,
that
she
whole
poisoned that whole fucking town,
that whole like, you know what I mean. But I bet you she even did wilder shit. She probably killed people.
Oh yeah, dude. She's nuts.
Yeah, definitely nuts. But you
now
gotta
she's
respect.
running a place.
Yeah, like it's and you know, like I heard about that on Rogan. Like I said, any good thing that's in the world, like I just hear about it from Rogan and I just watch it. But that dude was fucking crazy. Pretty insane what they did though, like moving them people over.
Yeah, dude. Like, and it was just so like because you've watched the first episode and you think it's gonna be like about
Something
like,
completely
racism
different.
and,
Yeah, you think it's like, oh, they don't like the
they're a cult or
yeah,
whatever,
but then you're just like, what the fuck? And then they're just like, we're gonna buy everything.
yeah,
And
they like build a whole.
that's
fucking
a
town and
gangster
shit,
move.
dude.
That's like that's some gangster shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm watching now is The Staircase.
You know what? That is a good one.
It's a little bit drawn out.
Yeah, I don't know if it should have been as drawn out because like the fourth and fifth episode, like I liked Making a Murder a lot.
Oh, that
better.
was so good because that was the original of the whole like
The Staircase
dark.
came out before that though.
Yeah, but like no one knew about it.
Right, because
Making a Murder was the first thing that like people were like, oh, murder type, like, you know, like mystery type thing. And then there was that other one about that old dude who killed his wife. It was called his name was like Robert Durst or something.
Oh yeah, the Jinx.
The Jinx,
Dude, he
that.
was fucked up. That dude.
How
was
crazy was that? At the
fucked
end,
up,
he
yeah.
just said that on the microphone. I was
Yeah.
like, "Jeez!" Like, you're
Yeah,
just
he's
like,
in
what
jail
the
now.
Yeah, dude, that was fucking insane. And like I said before, like I like reading about all that fucked up shit. I like
Did you watch
watching.
The Keepers?
No, is that The Nuns?
Yeah.
Everyone said
The
to watch
Keeper's
that.
really good, and it's also poignant now because of everything
Yeah.
that's fucking going on
That's
in the Catholic
you know,
Church.
I'm really trying to find someone that like is a religious person to have on here, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard because like, you know, I'm gonna ask the things that I want to ask.
You should. I mean, and that's also too like that's just a hard thing for like because like
it's a hard topic because that's literally the hardest topic to ever talk. It's more pressing than talking about politics.
Politics.
You know what I mean? And I was talking about it today because today's September 11th.
Right.
So I posted something 3 years ago that said, I think the scariest thing about today is that we'll never know exactly what happened.
Right.
With 9/11, and take it as you will, but like I think that like whether I might be a conspiracy theorist or not, but I'm not saying like any sort of thing happened, but I just question things. Like I question things because like there's been proof that our government has done some wild ass out of pocket shit, and like there's a lot of people that have said that like there's like structural engineers that said it's physically impossible for a plane to like knock them down, and just there's small pieces of things that like that I might not necessarily believe 100% that it was a set up conspiracy, but like like there's something you
can see where people believe that.
Yeah, like just why can't I question it? And like there's some people that go that were commenting from years ago, and then I said something again to someone today, and they were like, "This is fucking like," the dude was like, "This is ridiculous. This is like I can't even believe this that anyone would ever question this." And I'm just like, "Why, dude? Like the fucking government like sold cigarettes to us like for years, like literally just killing us and shit. I don't know. It's just wild."
And I think that like there's a difference between being a 9/11 truther and question, but like because there's that my whole thing about it is like it happened, and then we went into war with a completely different fucking country.
Yeah.
And I think that and that's what's hard also too now, because I can remember I was a teenager, like the first, and I know you're pretty apolitical, but like I can remember, the first presidential election that I voted in was against Bush.
You were always into politics?
Yeah.
Always.
But I had an aunt that was very into politics. Like she volunteered and campaigned for like Bobby Kennedy. Like,
see, like I don't know why I just never showed any, like no interest. So I just never learned about it, and I was always just like, like I don't need to pay attention to this at all. But like realistically, now that I'm an adult and shit like that, I try to pay attention, and I feel like I'm so far behind, and it sucks. But like, it's hard to. I don't know. The world nowadays makes you believe things that they want you to believe, and it's fucked up because like you can't look at the news. If you look at one news station and the other news station, they both have the same headlines that say the opposite things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like fucked up to like
There's
try
also
to
things too that I think, and this is why I like social media, because there are things that are happening locally in places that people aren't talking about. Like here's the thing. I am one of those people that hate our president, okay? And I totally get it, but focusing on Trump is not going to change anything, because we're still going to have the same problems that we've had if we don't talk about certain things. So for instance, people, not talking about, Flint, who still doesn't have clean water.
Yeah,
there's so many fucking issues that.
And you know what it gets me is that like I see all these issues now, and because I don't have any knowledge of any sort of like political, like I'm literally the most ignorant you could be about it. Like,
but at least you admit it.
I admit it 100%, and I fully embrace it, and I try to. Since I am showing an interest now, I'm going through and like reading things myself and coming up with my own opinions. But it's so fucked up now is that like there's just so much shit that is just misconstrued, and like like there's a lot of shit that's like, whether you say fake news, like people like there's just fucked up articles. Like back then, whenever you were learning about it, there wasn't as much bullshit that you had to sift through as far as like there is now. You know what I mean?
Right. Because now it's like a whole different ball game, and
Yeah,
you do.
everyone
have
has an
people-
ability to write an article. So I could
Right.
Google whatever, like what is a socialist or whatever, and there could be 1,000 articles from anyone.
I mean, there are socialists that don't know what socialism means.
Yeah.
And that's always, and that's the thing that is really kind of, what's interesting about, because there's all these issues, right? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is all political.
Yeah.
But it does make sense that people become so distant from politics because your politicians don't talk for you anymore. And you should be able, like, a politician in all reality should be a community organizer, should be somebody, a servant of the people. It shouldn't be somebody that you feel like that is untouchable, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you should be able to know your representative and know your senator and things like that. And I think that for such a long time, like, people didn't, and I
Yeah.
think that now there's this reemergence of people trying to take power over.
Yeah.
Is it too late? I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but I think
It's interesting
though,
to see everything now is very interesting, especially from someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight. Like, I don't have any reason to, be a fucking Democrat or a Republican. Like, I just like, I wasn't raised a certain way, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just had great parents. Like my dad was always involved with the community, always, and like I grew up in McKeesport and shit like that. So like there was not like racism or anything like that with like my family. Like we were always just like, like everyone
you
was
grew up
always
kind of-
around.
yeah, you had a good.
Yeah, like I had a wholesome family where like I was fortunate enough to have my mother and father the whole time, and you know what I mean. Like we were exposed to everything, like all different types of cultures and shit like that growing up, and it's just like, it's fucked up because like some people's parents, like some people seem to like as they're growing up, I feel like you kind of hear how your parents are, and you kind of gravitate towards that way.
Right.
A lot of the time, I'm sure there's people that don't, but like a lot of the time, but like my parents, like it was always just very neutral. Like my parents weren't very like outspoken. Like my mom wouldn't even tell me who she voted for. You know what I mean?
See, and that's like the complete opposite of like me and my mom. Like
Yeah.
my mom is hardcore, like, but also too, I think it was because like there's actually a picture of my great grandparents, and they had a picture of JFK on their wall.
Yeah.
Like, and they were immigrants, So I think
Yeah.
it was always just in, like, I can remember knowing about Bill Clinton at 7, 8 years old because my Aunt Ange, and it's funny because I always kind of think of like, what would she think of me now, because I did help.
Yeah.
My friend who's a judge, like he's now a judge, like we helped put him in office.
Yeah.
Like things that I've been doing, I always kind of think, what would my Aunt Ange think?
Yeah, I was curious like how you got involved with like the whole like learning about politics and everything, because you seem to be someone who like knows a good bit and like kind of just like, I mean, you have your own opinions and shit like that and your own beliefs, but like I feel like you know a good bit about everything.
I've tried to teach myself as much as I can.
Yeah.
Like I've always kind of been into politics, but I think more of like, because I think, so obviously I was like a very huge, and I still am a huge Bernie Sanders supporter.
Yeah.
Right. But I really, after the whole like election and everything, because I was not a fan of either candidate.
Yeah.
Not a fan of either. I wanted Bernie. I wanted Bernie. I wanted reform. I wanted this. I wanted that.
Yeah.
And I can say now, like it was definitely an emotional thing for me. And I did it, but like I think after this whole, Trump thing, it was more of like, all right, why am I focusing on this national stuff when like there's things locally that I can do?
Yeah, that you could actually like impact rather than like
Right.
have a it's not as far of a reach.
Right. Like, for instance, like, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff around Woodland Hills in that school and the things that are going on in that school. So I've been, trying to help out where I can. Those things are more, I pay attention to politics still, like,
Yeah.
obviously, and I vote and I, but I'm more focused on that local
Yeah.
a local.
Who's going to make an impact locally and shit?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like that's what affects my kids is like who's in.
Yeah.
locally
That
and
makes
who's
that
in.
makes sense for sure.
And that's really how I give a shit. You know,
Yeah.
like a Republican or Democrat, if they want to give me money to do whatever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
For sure.
I'm gonna find a way to work with you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
I mean, everyone has their own beliefs, and it's it's fucked up. All right. We got off a
I know, we
political
all
rant for
tangent.
20 minutes. Okay, so there's 2 more questions left. The second to last question is death row meal.
ooh,
You can go anywhere you want, different places,
I can go anywhere I want.
anywhere you want. Like, for instance, like like Billy Hoyle was like, I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here. So you can go wherever. You're about to
Okay.
fucking die.
I'm gonna go to the Village Inn in Verona.
Okay.
I'm gonna get shrimp aglio olio,
Okay.
and I'm getting wedding soup with their salad.
I feel like I might have been there before.
Dude, it's
The Village
fucking
Inn.
amazing. And they like had they shut down, but then they reopened, so they don't have as many tables now.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in so long, but it's fucking awesome. But then I would also have my mom make me her sauce with gnocchi
Oh, so good.
or gnocchi, however the fuck you say it.
We just went up to. You ever been to Serafino's up here?
No, dude, but
Unreal.
me, Dose Noun,
Yeah.
and his wife Laura.
I talked to him. He should be on here too.
Dude, yes, he would be great. That kid knows.
Thanks,
fucking
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
And he knows everything about the mafia. I'm Italian American. Everything I know about the American mob is because of Dan Music.
Well, help me link that. Help me link him up.
Oh,
after
I
this.
will.
Okay.
I got you. But yeah, we started doing this thing where we're gonna pick Italian restaurants outside of city limits.
Yeah.
So it can't be in the city of Pittsburgh. It has to be
Yeah.
outside. So we got to hit up that place.
Serafino's real small. You have to like. You can, BYOB. You can bring your bottle of wine there.
Nice. Dude.
Unreal. It's so good. Little
Yeah.
mom and pop place. Fucking kitchen is real small. Like, like the kitchen is literally right next to you. So it's like it's a good home vibe.
Yeah. So and then I would also I'd have Laura because Dan's wife is fucking amazing at baking. She's
Oh, yeah?
oh yeah, dude. She's an amazing cook, amazing pastry chef. I'd have her make me a cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would. Oh, and then I'd get blackberry lemonade from Einstein's. That
Einstein's Bagels.
Yeah.
I've never had their blackberry
Dude,
lemonade.
it's I
I'm not really a lemonade guy usually, but I would try it.
It's good. So that's my death row.
That's a good pick though. That's a good well-rounded pick. They make a Canada Dry that's ginger ale and lemonade now.
Is it good?
Not really. It's a little bit too extra. I just want some ginger ale. I like
You just
the
want your play. That's
Yeah,
me. I
just
want
a-
my
just
good
a
old
ginger ale. Okay, and then the last question of the podcast that I ask everyone is if you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
My dad. So my dad's dad. My dad has passed away.
Yeah.
7 years ago. But I would love to just sit down and talk to my dad again.
Yeah, I feel like that is anyone's family member.
Yeah.
Normally would be like the first answer. If it wasn't your family member, who would it be though?
If it wasn't my family
Yeah,
member,
if it wasn't, I think that I'm gonna have to like reform
that-
the question
yeah,
because
like-
my grandfather would obviously be like my first choice,
Oh, fuck. Who would I say?
But like if it's not a family member, like who I say if
Yeah.
it's not a family member is Robin Williams, just because
That's
like
a good one.
like I feel like that dude was just
So the person has to be dead.
yeah, I mean
Okay.
alive or dead,
Alive
anyone.
or dead.
Yeah. I just think Robin Williams is like he's always been like like fascinating to me. I've always just like
Yeah.
always loved him.
He does have a really comedians have fascinating lives.
Yeah, and they're
Like-
normally all dark at some
Yeah,
point.
Belushi.
Yeah,
Belushi.
it's
dude,
fucked
is
up.
so
It's
fucking
seriously
good.
fucked up, and it's like I listen to all these podcasts, and that's like why I do this fucking thing. Is like Rogan and like Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, all these
Tom
fucking
Segura's
guys.
great, dude.
Yeah,
I
he's
watched his,
hilarious. Disgraceful.
Yeah.
Available on
he's
Netflix if
great.
anyone has have not watched it yet. It's really funny. So
It's
is
really fucking funny.
Mother Inferior by Christina Pajitsky.
I didn't watch that
That's
yet.
his wife. She's phenomenal.
Oh, that's his wife.
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
Christina P. They have a podcast called Your Mom's House. All they do is it's just them two, and they talk about like shit, and they play like literal shit, and they play like fucked up videos on YouTube, and they just laugh at each other, talk about like farting and weird shit. But it's so big. Like the podcast is huge. But all these guys, like they all have stories or have listened to stories told by legends that they've came across, where they explain like these people's dark past, and you're just like, fuck, dude. Like these people were just up there making you like die laughing, but like inside they're like trying to escape from something. Like Robin Williams was a fucked up dude.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting because like he's the fucking genie. Like that's what people think of him as. Flubber, the genie, Jumanji, Hook.
Yeah, the funny guy.
Yeah, the
and
funny
they had
guy.
Such great lives. They must have, people always want to be around them.
Yeah, like Jim Carrey, like
Yeah.
Liar Liar and shit. Jim Carrey is a fucking nut job. Like, did you know that?
Yeah.
Nuts.
Oh, yeah.
But like, in the movie he plays like the funny guy that's like all lovable and stuff, but it's like, oh no, that shit is fascinating to me.
It is really fascinating. Alive or dead? Okay. George Orwell.
Oh yeah? Mm-hmm. That's a really good
Because
that's a good
I
choice.
want to see what he thinks.
About shit now, how things.
Him or Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, Hunter S. Thompson has been mentioned on here before. He
Yeah.
would be very interesting
Because
to talk to.
he would be really, but I think it would be George Orwell.
Yeah.
That's a hard question.
It is, isn't it?
These are
And like
good
I think that like the reason I ask these questions is because like you can kind of tell about a person from like what they listen to, you know what I mean? At least I can. And like I thought it was Chef Matt brought in the whole death row meal type thing. So I just fucking kept asking it, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on here.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, I'm glad we talked about this. I'm very, very, I'm just a dumb person that's trying to like keep up with it. So I appreciate everyone listening.
You're not
to this.
dumb. I'm just crazy and
Not
and
dumb.
into
It's
this
just
crazy
I'm
world.
not as educated, and I don't have the way to explain things. But people, I feel like that's what people appreciate about the podcast is my transparency and my.
Well, yeah, because you're getting to know. Like,
Yeah.
you're getting to know, and it's very natural. It's not like
Yeah, that's
it
my
almost
goal.
reminds me of like Howard Stern and how he conversates.
Yeah, like him and Mark Maron are my fucking. Him and Mark Maron are for sure the best interviewers of all time.
Yeah,
Like I just my goal is to not have it feel fake or rehearsed. Like I want it to be, like I want to like piece shit together in my mind as I'm fucking asking you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why like I don't have a template. If you listen to my first episode, it's like question, answer, question, answer, question,
Yeah.
answer. It wasn't a conversation. And like now that I'm like getting a little bit further and further, I'm like fine tuning it on how I want this fucking thing to be.
yeah.
But I do appreciate you coming in. You could plug anything you want to plug.
Okay, let me see. Oh, you know what? I will plug. Okay, so the Khalif Browder Foundation.
Okay.
So, Khalif Browder was a kid who was put in Rikers.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with him, he was put in Rikers for actually a crime he didn't commit. He was in there for about 3 years without a trial or anything. While he was in there, he was physically abused, sexually abused, all of this stuff. He got out and he just struggled. And he ended up taking his own life.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, so actually there's a documentary about him, which is very rough to watch, but it is you should watch it because it does.
Where's this at?
It's called Time, the Khalif Browder story. Jay-Z actually produced it.
Really? Mm-hmm. Is it on Netflix?
Yes.
Oh shit.
It's on Netflix. So his brother and I actually like started a friendship like over Facebook. Because I saw that he was doing stuff. So, the Khalif Browder Foundation, they're really working on these issues with kids, being put in adult facilities.
Yeah.
Especially they're doing a lot of stuff around Rikers right now. But also too, who else would I plug?
Gotta plug Chef Matt at Streets on Carson.
Yes, Chef Matt at Streets on Carson. He is amazing.
Always.
They have a new menu now, too.
They're about to
added some new
switch.
things.
They're about to switch on Halloween. They switch their menu over. He
They're
switches
switching
it
it
twice
again.
a year. He switches his menu twice a year. So what's going on right now is he has some things that he's just alternating right now.
Okay.
But his menu switches Mother's Day, I believe it is, and Halloween. Halloween is about to switch, which means it's going to be all
new.
Good shit. From what I assume. I hope I'm not speaking out of school.
That kid, yeah. I mean, he
But
can
he's
make...
a fucking nut job. He got stuff from... You'll probably be eating stuff from fucking, Kazakhstan next or something like that.
Yeah, he does like all that
Yeah,
cool
he's
shit,
a wild
which is
man.
dope.
Streets on Carson, though, the best
Street-
food in the city.
Shout out to this podcast. This podcast is
I appreciate
fucking
that.
awesome.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate everyone listening to this long, ill-informed conversation by me. But, yeah, follow me on social media at I'll Call You Right Back on Instagram, at ICYRE Podcast on Twitter. I'll call you right back on Facebook, YouTube, anywhere. Email me. Let me know what you like, what you dislike. If you have people that you would like me to have on here, call me a piece of shit, whatever you want to do. I do appreciate it, dude. But I will call you right back.